So the official welcome. Good morning, everyone. I am Jim Nienaber, the Minnesota Conference Benefits Officer, and I am happy to welcome you to Wespath's 2025 Retirement Webinar. Thank you very much for being with us today. Have just a couple of quick items before we get started. For those of you retiring this year and plan on moving, please contact Mike Durdahl as soon as possible to get your moves scheduled. The conference has some funds available for a retirement move, and Mike will have those details. If you need more information about how to contact Mike, just let me know. Second of all, I need to take a moment and say that health insurance in retirement is really an individual process. There are several factors to consider, and some of them are unique to you. So again, for those of you retiring this year, please keep an eye out for the packet we'll be sending out next week. We'll send it snail mail, and it'll also be an email. There will be forms and other specific information to your retirement. In the meantime, please contact me or Wespath with any questions about your health insurance. Today's presenters are Frank O'Brien and Cheryl Hatcher from Wespath Benefits and Catherine Kripp Martin from EY Services. Thank you all for taking the time to join us today. It is very much appreciated. And with that, I'll turn it over to Frank and Cheryl. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much, Jim, for that warm welcome. And thank you, everyone, for joining. I am going to go ahead and share my screen now. So all these wonderful technology things, we want to make sure that we get this up and going properly. And And Frank, can you confirm that this looks
Yes.
good?
Yeah, go ahead and send it forward and back so we can see it's moving. Very good.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Well, again, thank you very much for everybody for joining. Again, my name is Cheryl Hatcher, and I've been with Wespath for a little over 5 years now. But I've been in the retirement and insurance industry for, I hate to say, 25, 30 years now. So wonderful to be able to be here with you to tell you all about the benefits that you have with Wespath. Couple of housekeeping things that I want to mention as well. As you might have heard, this session is being recorded. I will be breaking down the sessions between the Wespath information, the benefit access demo that I'm going to do, as well as the EY portion. So you'll have a few different links that you can actually click on to get additional information or review that information that maybe you might have missed or wanted to hear again. So you'll be able to get that. I'll be sending that to Jim along with a copy of this presentation as well. So that will be forthcoming. Another factor, another point I want to bring up is I did forward out the benefit projections with the clergy service records last week. So I did receive responses from a couple of people, and so hopefully you did receive them. They were, again, sent via email. Nothing was sent in the mail. If you did not receive them, go ahead and, put your name in the Q&A box, and Frank will look at those, and I'll make sure that those actually get out to you after the session is over as well. And with that in mind, if you happen to have any questions regarding anything that I'm stating during this presentation, feel free to put that in the Q&A box or in the chat, either one. Frank will be there in the background to be able to help with those questions and actually might bring them up during my presentation that I'm going through. So go ahead and put that information out there so that we can have those questions addressed. And I think that is the housekeeping. Does that sound good, Frank?
I think that sounds good, Cheryl.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
then we've got a full program, so let's get going. So we're going to talk about your retirement forecast. And we want this to be a bright and sunny forecast. We don't want those, lightning strikes and the bad stuff. We want some good stuff. We want sunny days ahead for you. So let's talk through that agenda. We're going to talk about your retirement. That's why you're here. You want to talk about the time that you have coming up. What does that retirement process look like? We know we have some people here who are retiring as of July 1st, and some others that are thinking about maybe a few years down the road. All this information will still pertain to you, but just a little bit in the future. I'll talk through those retirement plans that we have here at Wespath. And with that in mind, all the different programs that we have, such as the life stage retirement income, life stage investment management, housing allowance exclusion. This is such a wonderful tax savings, tax advantage that clergy have in retirement. Want to make sure that you understand that benefit because it's really a really wonderful benefit. And also review some of the death and disability benefits, and then also all of the participant resources that you have. So a lot of stuff that we're going to talk through, right? So let's get going. So let's discuss maybe some of those common questions that you might have about retiring. So is now the right time or should I wait? That's something that you need to talk it through with yourself, your spouse, if so, or your family. Is this the right time? Are you ready? And maybe more importantly, is your spouse ready? There's going to be some changes after that Sunday, after you retire. So what are you going to be doing? Will you have enough money for retirement? I like to think of this as the money that you receive from us is actually your salary in retirement, since you'll no longer be receiving a paycheck. This is your salary. And then also, where am I going to live? I know some of you might be in parsonages and maybe you need to rent or even buy a house. And so that's something to think about. Or are you going to be moving? I know as Jim had mentioned, there might be a moving allowance there. Are you going to be possibly moving to somewhere nice and warm, maybe someplace near your grandkids? So, again, different things to think about. And also, what are you going to do with your time? Is this going to be the time you take up golf or maybe get a lot better at golf or maybe go fishing? You've got a lot of those 10,000 lakes there in Minnesota. Is this something you're going to do during your time? So think about what you want to do and help you enjoy that time that you'll have in retirement. So when we're talking about retirement, we are going to be going through the different types of retirement. So according to the Book of Discipline, there are 4 different ways that you can actually retire. The first is normal retirement. And normal retirement is deemed as age 65 or 40 years of service, with the emphasis on that or. It's either or, it's not one, you don't have to have both. So you're either 65 or 40 years of service. Early retirement is designated as age 62 or 30 years of service. So again, emphasis on the or. Mandatory retirement is at age 72. And then also there is a 20-year retirement, which is a voluntary retirement if you have 20 years of service in. So those are the different types of retirement. And these are just, we want to just point those out as it is in the Book of Discipline. Excuse me. All right, so now we actually get into the meat of things and talk about that retirement process. Oh, excuse me, sorry. The retirement process, we like to have a checklist. So this checklist is to help you understand the different steps you need to go through in order for your retirement. So first of all, we want you to be able to register, if you haven't already, for benefits access. If you're not familiar with benefits access, this is the actual place where you'll be making your elections for the benefits you'll be taking in retirement. Nice to be able to go into that and actually familiarize yourself with it so that it's not new to you when you actually have to make your decisions and your elections. The next thing you want to do is verify all of your personal information. Make sure that your social is right, your date of birth is right, your name is spelled correctly, your address, all that information. And with that, you also want to make sure that your spouse's information is correct, should you happen to have a spouse. Then that information, why is that important? Because the benefits that you actually receive is based on yours and your spouse's information. So make sure that that information is updated appropriately. One other thing that you want to check is your clergy service record. Now, when I emailed out this information with your benefit projections, I actually included in a clergy service record. So make sure that that information is correct. If it's not, feel free to go back to Jim and or Sue, and then they can review it and make sure that that information is updated in our system appropriately. And the last thing that I really like to uh, delve into is verify your beneficiaries are correct. The beneficiaries, sometimes you wind up having, your kids on there. They wind up moving or maybe changing their phone numbers. They're apt to do that. So make sure that information is correct. In case we need to get a hold of them, after your passing, it makes it easier for everyone, to get that taken care of appropriately. Okay, so there's your checklist. I did include the retirement checklist in that list of links as well, so feel free to look that over as well. Now, as I mentioned, the road to retirement actually goes through benefits access. So make sure you're familiar with that. Verify your information. We've got information regarding life stage retirement income. I'll talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation. But again, this is where you actually, again, elect your benefits. I will go through how to do that in our benefit access demo that we will go through around, I want to say around 11 o'clock or so. All right, so we'll go through that at that time. Now, when you actually elect or make your selection for your elections, those elections need to be done by June 30th at 3 o'clock Central in order to have your benefits start for July. So you can go out there, you can make your elections now or within the next few months. It will go into what's called a pending status. That pending status will be there up until that June 30th date. And then at that time is when your elections will begin to kick in, and that's when your exact numbers will come into play. If you wind up making an election and then maybe you want to change it or cancel it, you can do that. You can change as many times as you want up until that June 30th at 3 o'clock Central Time and date. Okay. Now for that, the first initial payment that you will receive, with July being our national holiday, and you have July 4th in there. Your first benefit will actually be processed probably around July 7th or so because of that holiday. So again, make your elections by June 30th. Make sure you note that. But yes, your first payment will probably be around the 7th of the month. Every month after that, it's going to be the first, and then the second or third of business day of the month. Okay. So ongoing, again, your monthly retirement income payments are going to be received via direct deposit. No checks are sent. And your defined benefits will be deposited into your account, either your checking or savings, as of the first business day of the month. Any defined contribution accounts that you are receiving or commencing those benefits, you're going to receive those as cash installment payments to your checking or savings account, and that will go in on the second or third business day of the month. So you receive two separate deposits into your account. Okay. Now, if you have any questions whatsoever regarding this process, we have got this lovely, happy, smiley team of our Wespath retirement team who are there to help you with any questions that you may have. If you have some issues regarding your benefits, or you're not able to do it yourself, or if you just need that extra incentive or just extra help to go through it, they're there to help you. And they're lovely team, and who are very patient and kind, and they'll help you through that process. Okay, so if you take nothing away from this, this is the only thing you take away from this, just know that you've got people here at Wespath who will help you through this process, and before, during, and after. Okay, we don't just stop at when you elect your benefits. If you have any questions, we're here for you. So one thing that I want to make sure that that we go through and that you understand your sources of income. So let's talk. We're going to talk about your the most common retirement plans that we have. So the one that we're currently in right now is the Clergy Retirement Security Program, or CRSP, and we'll talk through that plan. We'll talk through the ministerial pension plan and make sure that you're aware of all the benefits that are accumulated with that. We also have a pre-82 plan. That was for anybody who was in service prior to 1982. I looked at everybody's service records and benefit projections, and we don't have anybody. But we just want to make sure that you're aware that that was a plan that was in place that we had. And then let's talk about your participation in the UNPIP and any other plans that you may have. So UNPIP is the amount, the ones that you're actually putting money into. So we'll let you know about that benefit. And then also think about your whole household income. And we want to think about your spouse's income as well, because that's going to be part of the overall process of how much you can actually will be receiving in retirement. And then also, what is your Social Security going to be? So, if you haven't already signed up or gone to Social Security, there's a way that you can figure out how much you can be receiving in retirement. And that is if you go to my Social Security account at ssa.gov. They will show you, if you go in there and they're very serious about their security. So go through the different steps that you need to go through. And once you're in, then you'll see your entire work history and all the different amounts that you've received over the years, and then it'll give you an amount that you actually could be receiving in retirement. All right, so that is a great place to go into, and then actually you can use that amount when you're actually signing up for our benefits as well. All right, now before I head over to talk about the retirement plans that we have, Frank, are any questions that we have? Are we doing good?
We're doing very well. No questions have come in yet, but please ask your questions as we start to get into the nuts and the bolts.
Exactly. It will definitely make my presentation more interesting if you ask questions and actually give Frank something to do as well. All right. So I'm going to go through the Wespath retirement plans. Again, we want this to be a nice and clear day, but in case there are stormy weathers, we've got you covered. We've got rain slickers for you. So so here are different types of retirement plans that we have. But the first one we're going to go into is actually the CRSP plan. That is the current plan that we have now. And we're going to go from that, and then we're going to work our way backwards. So for the CRSP, or Clergy Retirement Security Program, it is actually based, it encompasses two different factors, two different circles here, two different benefits, let's say, a defined benefit as well as a defined contribution. I'm going to talk about the defined benefit first, because that's maybe just a little more complex, only because there's calculations involved. That's all. So let's go through that first, and then I'll talk about the defined contribution. But these two added together is what makes up your Clergy Retirement Security Program. So the defined benefit is not a balance. You're not going to find it on your quarterly statement that is emailed to you. It's actually a formula. So this formula is developed and derived from three components that we multiply together. So what are those components? Well, let's talk about them. The first is actually the denominational average compensation, or the DAC. And then we multiply that by a factor, and that factor is either 1.25% or 1%. And I'll get into a little bit about each of these in just a little bit as well. And then we multiply that by the credited service during that period of time. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about each of those. The denominational average compensation is just the average plan compensation of clergy serving full-time appointments. That's your key factor there, full-time appointments. So for the last few years, last year's denominational average compensation was just a little bit over $78,000. For 2025, it's just over $80,000. Going forward, per the 2024 General Conference, it was approved to have the DAC increase by 2% each year. So that will be the increase going forward, 2% added onto the $80,003. So that's your denominational average compensation. That's your first number. The second number is actually going to be the factor. And now the factor is, as I mentioned before, it's either 1.25% or 1%. The reason why there's a difference is that when the plan first started as of January 1st of 2007, as of General Conference of 2012, they wound up making a slight change to that factor. And that factor then changed from 1.25% down to 1%. And that was effective as of January 1st of 2014. Now, in this example, I'm using July 1st of 2025 as the retirement date. So that's why we're seeing the second factor having that time period through June 30th of 2025. So for that time period it is 1%. Okay. Now the next is the credited service. And the credit service is going to be for those two different time periods because we have to have a different factor. So for that factor, for that time period, it's actually, 7 years if you're full time. And then for the second time frame, it's 11 and a half years, again, if you were full time. If you wound up being part time or, during that, the time the credited service is adjusted for that time. Now that we have our three numbers, all we need to do is multiply them together and do some math, okay? I'll walk you through that. So on the first one, on the left-hand side, this is for the service from January 1st of 2007 through December 31st of 2013. We have our DAC number of the $80,003. We multiply that by 1.25%, which equates out to 0.0125. We multiply that by the 7 years of being full-time. That comes out to $7,000. That's an annual amount. We pay benefits on a monthly basis, so we have to divide that amount by 12. So when we do that, we get an amount of $583. So that's just one piece of the defined benefit. The second piece is for that second time period of service. You still have that same DAC number of $80,003. We multiply that by 1% or 0.01. Multiply that by 11 and a half years. We come up with $9,200 as an annual benefit. Again, we need to divide that by 12 for a monthly benefit of $767. When you add those two together, you get a base amount of $1,350. Now, is this amount of $1,350, is that what everyone's going to receive? Possibly, but more than likely not. So, and why would that be? So these are going to be based on the choices that you make impact your retirement income. Now, do you have a surviving spouse? That can affect that number that you have. As far as the cost of living adjustment, that can actually affect your initial benefit as well. We do have a minimum of 2% that we include in there. You have options to change that to a higher number, and I'll go through examples of that later as well. And also, as I mentioned earlier about the book of discipline and the ways that you can retire, there's 4 different ways that you can retire. If you wind up retiring early, there can be a reduction in your initial monthly benefit. But I'll go through all of that coming up in these next few slides. If you're going to be having a life and surviving spouse benefit, these are the different types that we have available to you. You, as the clergy person, are always going to be life. That's you. You are life. Surviving spouse is going to be the percentages. So it goes from 70, 85, and 100%. If you wind up having a life in 70%, I will show you later on where the numbers will show that that's going to be the larger amount for the clergy person, but the smallest amount for the surviving spouse or contingent annuitant. And then if you go with life in 100, that's going to be the least amount for the clergy, but then the most amount for the surviving spouse. But again, I'll show you examples of that. The second option that I told you about was the cost of living. Again, your minimum amount is going to be 2%, and different factors that you want to think about as far as the COLA is considered. What is your age and your spouse's age? If you wind up having a large discrepancy between yourself and your spouse for the age, the the time frame for your spouse maybe to have the benefit, you might want to think about something higher. Over the last 100 years, the COLA percentage, the cost of living adjustment has been between 2 and 3%. Again, over the last 100 years, okay, about 2 to 3%. The last few years, it's been a little bit higher than that, but on average, it's been about 2 to 3%. Other considerations to think about is family longevity. You know, how long do you, how are the genes in your family? My parents are 86 and 91, so I'm hoping that I have those longevity genes in me as well. Think about your health and your spouse's health, because that can actually, have a factor in the amount that or what kind of COLA you want to have. If your health maybe isn't that good right now, and then you want to have the most you can get for your benefits now, that's something that you can think about and having a lower COLA for that. Also think about the other sources of income that are available to you. Do you have any other qualified retirement plans outside of Wespath, or this is something you think about, if your spouse has benefits as well that will be coming into retirement. So again, think about all these different things when you think about a COLA. One thing that I haven't actually mentioned yet, and this is a good place to mention it, is we do have something called EY Financial Planning Services. If you have any questions regarding what might be best for you, contact them. They will go through all the numbers in anything with your spouse as well, and anything that you have on the outside. They will go through all those numbers to help you give you the best numbers for you in retirement. So it's no cost to you, since the fees for them come out of our operating budget, but it's another resource of people who can help you with these decisions. Okay. Another factor, the other reason why you might have a lower initial monthly payment for your defined benefit is due to early retirement. Now, as I mentioned during the types of retirement, if you're 65 or 40 years of service, then that's considered normal retirement. 62 or 30 years, that's considered early retirement. So when we actually did our calculation, we had that $1,350. If we wound up doing a retirement earlier than the normal retirement, there would be a reduction in your initial monthly benefit. The reduction is basically 0.5% per month earlier than what you would take for retirement. So that equates out to about 6% each year. And for this example, if Reverend Wesley actually retired 2 years early at age 63, the reduction then would be 12%. So reducing that amount from his $1,350 from that what we calculated earlier, that his reduced amount would come down to $1,188. Reason for this is because we're paying that money out for a longer period of time, so there would be a slight reduction in that. Now, and this is actually assuming that he did not meet the 40 years service rule. Okay, so these are the different factors or reasons why that $1,350 may not be what you receive in your retirement calculation for your defined benefit. Okay, now that's defined benefit. I'm going to shoot over into defined contribution now, and then if there's any questions, we'll go through that. Oh, we have a question. All right, let's go for it, Frank. Thank you.
So a question came in, and it goes back to that denominational average compensation piece.
Mhm.
Is the DAC computed using salary plus housing allowance or salary plus the 25% parsonage? And then secondarily, does health insurance costs get included in the average? So yes, the denominational average compensation did include any housing allowance or parsonage that was being provided. However, under CRSP, it excluded or did not combine in any health insurance costs that were covered within that compensation package provided by the annual conference. So yes, on housing and or parsonage, but at the time we were calculating the DAC, not any health insurance coverage that was additionally provided as comp.
Great. Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate the questions. So keep them coming. Keep them coming. All right. So let's talk now about the defined contributions. So the second piece of that clergy retirement security program. When you're in pre-retirement, so as right now, before you actually retired, you have this as an account balance. You've got a lot of flexibility with this type of account. So it is flexible. The account balance is, if you're putting in at least 1%, then you're getting a 2% match to your contribution. So that's an automatic that you're already getting. You can actually self-manage, or you can actually use life stage investment management. And again, succinctly, you can actually tell us which accounts you want to be in if you're self-managing, or we will do we will figure out what would be best for you if you're utilizing life stage investment management, and I'll go through that in a little bit later in the presentation as well. Now, in retirement, your funds are available to you as cash distributions. That's what a lot of people utilize. They do that on a monthly basis. Again, you can utilize life stage retirement income, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later as well, which is succinctly is letting you have as much as you can, have for your retirement without taking money out too fast and without taking money out too slow, right in the middle. So we want you to be able to enjoy retirement and do things that, and utilize that money and still be able to, do all that fun stuff. Or you can self-manage. You can tell us how much you want to take out each month. So that's a few options, and you can switch between the two at any time. You're able to roll that money over into your UMPIP account, which is also a defined contribution account, just so that they're all mixed together. You could leave the money on account and not do anything with it if you'd like, up until your required minimum distribution age, which is either age 73 or 75, depending on your date of birth. And I'll go into that in a little bit later on as well. You could also, any money in your defined contribution, that amount would actually, if there's any money left after you and or your spouse pass, then that money would go to beneficiaries. With the defined benefit, as I talk through that formula benefit we just talked through, if once you and or your spouse pass, then benefit stops. It doesn't go anywhere else. With the defined contribution, any monies left would go to beneficiaries. Okay, so that is the defined contribution. All right. Now we're going to go on to the ministerial pension plan. So again, keeping you covered, keeping you warm and dry, making sure that you have that money in retirement. So we're going to talk through this ministerial pension plan, or the MPP. We're going a little bit back in time because this actually was from 1982 through 2006. And this amount, as of then, it was an account balance. Okay. And it's been invested utilizing life stage investment management. So nothing has been put into the account. So it's just been, sitting there, but it's been invested all this time. And upon commencement of benefits, that's when you start to take the money out of there. I will go through the couple of options that you have available. When the plan was first established, 65% of that MPP money would actually go for an annuity. Now there's a change where you have an additional option that's available to you, but 65% is your key number there. 65% of your MPP, and then 35% will always stay as an account balance. Okay. And then you also have 6 annuity options that are available to you. So we'll go through all of those as well. And then you also have 5 annual COLA options, the cost of living adjustment that I mentioned. So I want to discuss the 2 65% options that you have available. So option 1, again, as the when the plan was first set up, 65% of that amount would go toward a lifetime annuity. Now, what is that? That's just a series of payments that's going to last through your and, if elected, your spouse's lifetime. Okay. And a monthly amount that you are not going to be able to outlive. So if you wind up living to 150, this money will pay you out. That full amount will pay out until, with COLA, until you pass. Okay. That is what an annuity is. It will continue to pay for you, but once you pass and or your spouse pass, if you choose that option, then the money stops. The other option that you have, option 2, and this was just voted on in General Conference of 2024. Another option that you have for that 65% is to actually have that be a defined contribution and use life stage retirement income to actually fund it. It will pay you monthly installments and, again, professionally managed. But once you make one of those 2 options, that decision is not revocable. So, so you have 2 options for that 65%. And then, of course, that other 35% remains as an account balance. So putting it all together, again, you have 65% for a lifetime annuity. You're going to receive that money for your and your spouse's lifetime. Or again, you take that money and have it be a life stage retirement income, and you receive monthly benefits from that. But any money that would be left over could go to beneficiaries. So I like to say that there's no advantage to either option. Either one is wonderful and great. Just whatever is most comfortable for you. Okay. One, you can have you have peace of mind knowing that you're always going to get that as a monthly benefit. Or sometimes people like to be able to provide legacy payments, or I'm sorry, legacy amounts, beneficiaries, amounts left over for their beneficiaries. So either option is great. Okay. Now, I'd like to go through an example. And as I mentioned before about the annuity options, the life and percentage. So again, life is for the clergy person, percentage is for the spouse or contingent annuitant. In this example, I'm going to go through the first 3 of the 6 options that are available. As you can see, there's 3 columns here, but you're only going to receive the payments from one of the columns. You're not going to get both. Let's look at the life and 70% option first. As you look down at the bottom of that chart, life and 70%, that is the most amount that you as a clergy person in that payable to you column would receive. But once you pass, then the amount that's payable to your contingent annuitant or to your spouse, that's the lowest amount that they would receive. If you go up 1 in that chart, life and 85%, the amount for you goes down a little bit, but the amount for your contingent annuitant or spouse goes up quite a bit. And then if you look at the life and 100%, it's the same amount that will go to you and also go to your spouse or contingent annuitant. Okay. These amounts, again, we're assuming a 2% COLA, and they'll grow 2% each year. But these are different options we want you to be aware of. Again, payable to you is going to be payable to the clergy person. And then once you pass, then the last column on the right would be payable to the spouse. You won't get both of those. So these are the first three options that are available for the life and survivor. Now, if you're not married, this doesn't apply to you. So let's go through what might be available for our single folks. You have options, you have these three options. You have life only, life in 5 years certain, or life in 10 years certain. So when we go from the top on this one, this is the most amount that you can receive. When you look back, the amounts on this chart are lower because we're paying out for two people. Okay. For this chart, we're only paying out for one person, so the amount's going to be higher. If we're looking at the life only, again, that's going to be your highest amount. But what does life with a 5-year certain or life in a 10-year certain mean? Kind of think of that as like a guarantee. We would pay out if you chose the life in 5-year certain, let's say that you retire and then you wind up, unfortunately, if you wind up passing away 2 years after the benefit started. If you chose the life in 5-year certain, then that payment of the 1432, again, these are, and I'll tell you in just a little bit what these amounts are based on. The 1432 would be payable to your beneficiary that you had set up for that for another 3 years. So you would receive the benefits for 2 years and then you passed, and then 3 years to your named beneficiary. Same with the 10-year certain, same thing. So 2 years for you, 8 years for the next, for the contingent annuitant. Now, if by chance you chose the 5-year certain and you wound up passing away after, 10 years down the road with the 5-year certain, we've already paid out the amount for the certain, period of time, or that guaranteed period of time. No further benefits will be paid to anybody else because we wound up paying out more, longer than the 5-year certain. I hope that makes sense. Now, for both of these examples, for this chart, as well as the additional 3 life annuities for the single, these amounts are based on about a 400,000 MPP balance. All right. And so just wanted to let you know that. So that's where these numbers come into play. They are real numbers, but it may not be your numbers. Okay, so these are the 6 different types of options that you have. If you are if you have a life and survivor, you could wind up taking the life only option if you wanted to, but knowing that your spouse would need to sign off that they know that they would not be receiving any of these benefits, but that is an option available to you. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Any questions on this information so far? I know that can be kind of confusing at times.
Yes, one question came in specific to the topic. When do you need to make the decision? Read the MPP annuity option 1 or 2. With ministerial pension plan, because it is an account balance plan, you can make the election going into retirement. So for today's conversation, 7/1/25, you can make your election, just as of June 30th to go forward and get your distributions. However, you can defer till a later time, up until the required minimum distribution date, to begin to receive the benefits from the MPP plan. However, please note, once you have made an election and you go to pay status with that election, either the annuity or life stage retirement income, that is an irrevocable election. So just be mindful of that. Once made, a couple of years down the road, can't go back and go to the other option that was provided. I hope that made sense.
Correct.
Another question that came in had to deal with part-time pastors. And part-time is something that's more annual conference specific. There's some leeway or flexibility there. So that kind of a question, I would direct back to Jim and or Sue within the annual conference to speak about.
Perfect. All right. Thank you very much for that. Again, we're making this presentation more pleasurable because you're asking the questions. We're making this more interesting. All right, now I want to talk a little bit more about the COLA option. And the annual increase can actually have a difference in that payment that you have. So the amount that you can actually put in for a COLA is actually between 0, 2, 3, or 5%. The 0% is only for the MPP benefit. For the CRSP benefit, you only have the option of 2, 3, 4, or 5. But how does that COLA impact your initial benefit? It does, and I'm going to show you how with this really nice graph that we have. Let's look at if we do a 2% COLA. It's going to be our purple line here. We're looking at a benefit of about, let's say, $1,700 a month. And these numbers are just for an example, just showing you how the 2% each will increase over time from, let's say, 65 up to 93. Now, 5% would be, wouldn't that be great? I mean, why wouldn't we want a higher COLA benefit, right? Well, that does impact your initial monthly benefit. So how much it impacts it is shown here. So going from about $1,700 a month to around $1,200. So that's quite the difference for your initial monthly benefit. But as I mentioned earlier about think about your health, think about your longevity, as far as where that amount intersects and crosses over from the 2%, it will might be around that area, but if you've got longevity in your family, then possibly you want to look at the higher COLA because then as you go on in years, you'll have a higher benefit. But again, if maybe your health isn't as great in the beginning, you want to have a higher benefit to start with. So different things to think about that maybe would be good. Just talk with EY about as well. Now for the MPP benefit, you're like, why would I want to choose a 0% COLA? Well, that's actually your highest benefit that you'll actually receive. So that's around, let's say, $1,900 a month. But again, as you'll see, it's going to stay flat, throughout the whole time that you actually receive that benefit. But again, if you want to receive the most, for your MPP benefit in the beginning, that would be the 0% COLA to take. And then just want to pepper it in with some, additional colors with the, yellow and green. There's showing the 3 and 4%. All right. So that's where this graph I think is great in showing how the cost of living definitely impacts your initial monthly benefit. So let's talk about your MPP considerations. Again, as Frank had mentioned with the question that we had, you can definitely leave that money on account until age 73 or age 75. Want to think about reviewing those two options that you have for the 65% balance, whether that's an annuity or if you keep it as a defined contribution. You could take that 35% as the account balance and actually wait on the 65%. Again, with the defined contributions, you have so many different options, and here's where they're all coming into play. You can actually roll that money, roll the 35% over into your going PIP, and you got a lot of other distribution options that are available as well. So that is MPP, and I see Frank coming back on before we head over to our next plan with the pre-82.
Question came in, can we put 100% of the MPP into the annuity? You cannot put 100% of the MPP into the annuity. We still keep it at that 65% level and that 35% level. So the 65%, if you were to choose the annuity, would just be that 65%. But conversely, if you're interested in life stage retirement income, that 65% can use life stage retirement income, and you can make the choice to use that 35% in life stage retirement income with your other account balances as well. I hope that made sense.
Correct. Perfect. Thank you so much, Frank. All right, I'm going to talk really quickly about the pre-82 plan and basically to help you weather the storm. And I did look at benefit projection rate. I didn't see anybody with the pre-82 plan, but I just want to make sure that you're aware that prior to 1982, we did have a great retirement plan that was available for clergy members, and this was actually a lifetime monthly benefit. So again, like a defined benefit. And it was calculated based on the greater of two calculations. The pre-82 years of service, multiply the past service rate that's assigned by annual conference, or we look at the defined account balance and we convert that into a lifetime annuity, and we call that the defined benefit service money, or DBSM. So we look at the calculation of those two, whichever is higher, we will give you that. So if that calculation for the past service rate is, let's say, $100, but the defined benefit service money was actually $400, we're going to give you the $400. You don't have to tell us which one. It's like, should I take the 100 or the 400? Well, I think that answer is pretty obvious. You want the 400. So, but we do that for you. Every year we would do a calculation to see which is the highest, and we always give you the higher one. So in a nutshell, that's what the per 82 benefit was or is. And we still have a few people that are still in this, so we do talk about it a little bit from time to time. Now, with that, I want to go over into the UMPIP. That is also what we call a defined contribution plan that accepts the money from, plan sponsors, from employers, where your money can actually go into it via the payroll deduction. So again, if you're putting in at least 1%, you're getting your CRSP defined contribution match of 2%. There are annual contribution limits that I will go through on the next slide. And you've got many different options, investment options that are available to you. You can actually have life stage investment management manage your funds, which about 80% of our people do. Or again, you can do it yourself and choose whichever funds that you like as well. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. But now I want to go through the 2025 contribution limits. Don't get scared. These are high numbers, but I want to make sure that you're aware of because this is IRS regulated. So, and it did change for 2025. So if you're under the age of 50, then your contribution limit can be $23,500. Now, this is where it gets a little bit, more, confusing, or let's say it's a good benefit. If you're between the age 50, 59, you actually have what's called a catch-up contribution that you can put in there, and that's an extra $7,500. So you can put in up to $31,000 in a year. But the change for this year is there's actually what's called a super catch-up contribution. As if you're between the age of 60 and 63, you can put in an additional amount in there for a total of $34,750. Okay. And then when you're back down to the age 64 or older, you can put up to that $31,000. So between 60 and 63 is you get that extra amount that you can put in there just to help fund your retirement if you weren't able to put as much in when you were younger. So this is a time to do that. Okay. So that is, but again, don't want you to think, hey, I didn't put enough in right away. You can put some more in if you have that capability. Talking about the personal contribution scenarios, a couple of the ones that are the most common are the before tax as well as Roth. You should be, hopefully familiar with that. Again, if you have any questions regarding them, you can always contact EY Financial Planning Services. So again, people retiring as of July 1st, you can think about this or just keep what you have. But for the people who are retiring later on, I want to think, would this be an option to maybe have before tax and or Roth contributions into your UMPIP plan? So again, when we're talking about contributions, we're talking about avoiding tax now. But then if you're avoiding tax now, you're going to need to pay the tax man later when you take a distribution. So when you take that distribution, then the amount would be taxed. But before you take a contribution, before you take a distribution, all of your contributions and the earnings on those contributions, those are tax deferred. And again, no tax is actually paid until you receive a distribution in retirement. As far as Roth is concerned, Roth is a form of after tax. And what you do is you actually pay taxes on your amounts first. So you pay all your taxes, and then you pay your taxes now, and then on that money that you have for those contributions, any earnings on that as well, when you take a distribution in retirement, if you meet all the qualifications, then those distributions are tax-free. Again, those qualifications are you first need to have put your first contribution in 5 years prior to your withdrawal, and then you must be at least 59 and a half or older, permanently disabled, or deceased. So those are the qualifications, but it might be a good idea to think about. Is if Roth is a good option for you. Again, EY can help with that as well. Another factor that you can think about are rollovers. If you wind up having another qualified plan from outside, maybe traditional IRA, simple IRA, or maybe another 401k if you're a second career clergy, maybe you can think about moving that money over into UMPIP. If you have any questions regarding the process, I'm actually the one who handles the rollovers at Wespath. So you can ask me any of those questions. It can be as simple as filling out one of our forms, sending it back to us. Then what I do is I send out what's called a letter of acceptance to your financial institution. And then once they receive that, they can do their work on their end and then forward us a check. And then we put it into your UMPIP account. Sometimes it works out that easily. Sometimes I need to get back involved with you, and we contact the financial institution together to make sure that they have everything that they need in order to do that rollover. So again, any questions you have with that, you can definitely contact me on that. Another way that you, for distributions in retirement, these are different ways that you can actually take your money out. You can take it out as a cash installments, which is, again, what a lot of people do. They have that monthly amount that comes out. Again, you can decide to how you want that money to come out. Do you want Life Stage Retirement Income to do that for you, which is our program utilizing Life Stage Investment Management to calculate what that monthly amount would be for you to take money out on a not too fast, not too slow basis, so right in between. Or you can tell us how you want or how much you want taken out each month. That's perfectly fine. You can also take money out on a partial or a full lump sum. Always your option to do. We do caution you if you wind up taking that money and putting it into another institution, you might lose your housing allowance exclusion, which I'll talk about later on as well. At your passing, any amount that you have left in any of your defined contribution accounts, again, would go to your beneficiaries. But again, you can always keep that money on account until you reach the required minimum distribution age, which is probably around 73. Okay. And regarding required minimum distributions, again, you can leave that money on account. One of the links that I did send you was a brochure for the required minimum distributions. Again, leaving the money on account with us, you can keep that money on account after you turn 73 or age 75. The April afterwards, then you would have to start taking as a required minimum distribution. And again, that applies to all of your defined contribution accounts only, not your defined benefit, just defined contributions. We do keep track of how much that a required minimum distribution would be. Let's say that you are taking, receiving distributions from us, and let's say that equates out to $8,000 in a year that you've received from us, but maybe your required minimum distribution should have been $12,000. Well, you've already received $8,000. Another $4,000 would need to be paid out to you. If we've already paid you $16,000 in a year, and your required minimum distribution would have been $12,000, nothing would be paid for you as an RMD because we already paid out more than what the RMD would be. And again, if you haven't taken your defined benefits for the MPP or the CRISP or the pre-82, then those need to happen as of that time as your required minimum distribution age. So again, regarding that required minimum distribution age, if you're born in 1951 or later, then up to December 31st of 1958, your RMD is actually 73. And if your birthday is 1959 or later, then your RMD is age 75. Okay. There are taxes that need to be taken out of your distributions. This isn't our rule. This isn't a Wespath rule. This is actually a IRS ruling. So if you're taking a full or partial distribution, then we do need to take a 20%, for taxes. And for RMDs, it's actually 10%. So not a Wespath rule, but it is an IRS ruling that we need to do that. Before I head into the new Compass plan for that's starting as of January 1st of 2026, Frank, I'm glad you came back. Any questions that we may have?
How long does the projected monthly installments on my benefits projection statement last for the defined contributions? The assumption on the benefit projection that you have is that you've elected life stage retirement income to provide you monthly installments. Life stage retirement income, and Cheryl will get into deeper detail later, is designed to provide a stream of monthly income for you and your spouse to last throughout your lifetime. I'll simply say that we apply the principles of an annuity, actuarial mathematics, mortality tables, similar to an annuity, to ensure what we're giving you now, we have the ability to provide for you with increases over time to last through retirement. And again, you'll hear more about that soon.
Yes, yes. So I'm going to touch.
Hold one moment, please.
Oh, yes.
Okay, no, we're good. I got a thanks.
Oh, okay. Excellent. All right. We like the thanks. All right. So now I'm going to go just a little bit into Compass. You are going to hear so much about Compass during this, this whole year. Again, if you are retiring as of July 1st of 2025, this doesn't apply to you. But for anybody who's going to be, with us into January of 26 and beyond, Compass is going to be the new mandatory retirement plan. Okay. I want to just, again, touch a little bit about it here. But again, we're going to have so many other webinars, seminars, talking about Compass that hopefully all of you are going to be very, very adept at what this is. We want to make sure that everybody's understanding of it because it's new, but here's just a little taste, a little snippet, if you be. So what doesn't change? If you're active and you're keeping your benefits under the legacy plans, you're going to still have your pre-82. Again, that doesn't matter for anybody here, but you're still going to have your MPP. You're still going to have your CRSP. This, all of those, the previous plans, they were all frozen in those time periods. CRSP is going to be a frozen as well, meaning you don't have any additional accumulated service going into that. Your accumulated service is now going to be going into the Compass plan, but any benefits that you had under those previous plans, it's still yours. It's still there. If you're retiring again, this has no impact on you. There's no change. You get your benefits you have now. You're not going to be eligible for Compass. Eligibility, there's no eligibility changes, no immediate changes to the current, from the current plan of CRSP. So there's no, there's no difference in making yourself eligible for Compass versus CRSP. So what's the difference? So right now, under the CRSP plan, we've got, as I mentioned, you had those two bubbles. One's the defined benefit and one's the defined contribution. So you have both. You have both things to add into the CRSP benefit. So some of that is mostly pension and some of it is account-based. With Compass, it's only going to be the account-based plan. Under that CRSP, the plan sponsor owns most of that account, whereas under the Compass plan, the clergy person owns that entire account. So that's where the major difference is, as far as ownership. It actually allows for more flexibility for surviving spouses, beneficiaries, and heirs. Again, as we mentioned, defined benefit, it's for you and or your spouse, and then it stops. Account balance, if there's anything left in that balance, then it goes to beneficiaries. So that is the main difference between the two. Regarding how it's funded, there's going to be automatic contributions. Again, this is as of January 1st of 2026. So we have $150 per month that's going to go in to everybody's account, just for you being you. The next we have is a 3% of your compensation is going to be added into your account as well. Now, as far as the 3% of your compensation is actually defined as compensation including housing allowance with 35% parsonage value. That is an increase of 10% from what the CRSP plan was based on. So that's another advantage right there as well. The third piece for the Compass contribution is a one-on-one dollar matching. So if you're putting in 4%, you will get the full 4% as a match. So let's think about this. If you're putting in 4%, you get the matching 4%, so you get 8%. Plus you have the 3% that the plan's putting in, so that's 11%. Plus you're getting $150 each month. So, that just increases your percentage. So put in 4%, you get well over 11% into your retirement plan. So a really wonderful plan for clergy looking forward. We want to make sure that, again, you have enough in retirement going forward, so that that's your salary in retirement. So again, this is just the again, a real quick overview of what the Compass plan is, and that's where I'm gonna kind of hold off on there. So any questions on this information so far regarding Compass before I head into the investments, investing your account? Are we all good?
No additional questions have come through.
Wonderful. Okay. All right. So let's head through and let's talk about the investing your account balance before and after in retirement. So when we're talking about investing with Wespath, we've got lots of different, diversified investment options that are available to you. Again, we've got low ratios and no low expense ratios and no commissions. You've got life stage investment management that's available to you. EY financial planning, which I've talked about several times already. You're going to continue hearing me talk about them. Sustainable investing, we want to think about investing for the long term. You're already there. That's why you're here. You're thinking about retiring. So we're looking at that sustainable investing and, looking at it for the long term. And we do align our investments and our plans with the values of the United Methodist Church. So I'm not going to go through all of the different funds that we have, but I put it on a graph that you can see how our different funds are. So this is actually a fund lineup on a risk versus potential return scale. So we look on the bottom, that's your risk. And then the vertical axis is your potential return. Our stable value fund is where it's our lowest risk, but it also has the least potential for return, but it still does earn some, income. But it is on our lower end for as far as risk is concerned. Next up from that is we have our fixed income funds or our bond funds. So as you go up, that increases with the risk. And then our equity funds are, our stock funds are on the top. So they actually have the most risk, but they also have the most potential for return. When you're younger, those are the ones to be in because you're going to be in them for a longer period of time. But when you're getting closer to retirement, we're going to be heading down on that scale because we still want you to be, having some income, but yet we want that money to be more safe because you're actually receiving a benefit from it. So that's where the funds will actually come from. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about the life stage versus self-managing. So I kind of briefly touched on some of this a little bit already. Again, you have an option of life stage where life stage investment management, and then you also have self-managing where you're choosing your own mix of funds. But then you also have EY to help you with either of these options as well. But touching a little bit more about life stage investment management. So what is that? It's actually a personalized management tool for all of your defined contribution accounts. So not your defined benefit, but all your defined contributions. So your MPP 35%, maybe your MPP, 65% if you chose that as an option. You've got your CRSP, defined contribution amount, your UMPIP, all of that. What it does, it actually sets an asset allocation for you that's picked for you, because everybody's retirement is going to be different. Yours is going to be different from mine, different from Frank's, different from Jim's. So everybody's own tool is going to be different. And it's reviewed quarterly based on the month of your birth date. And the amounts can be rebalanced as needed. And we will get into that in just a little bit. So this actually manage all of your investments during active as well as in retirement. So this is still available for you while you're in retirement. So for the life stage investment management, it does create that diversified investment portfolio based on all of your individual factors. The variables that it's looking at are your age, your expected commencement date, and your risk tolerance. All right. Now, if you do not pick a investment profile, one is actually selected for you, and you may be in the default. And this default is actually where you have a moderate risk tolerance. Your benefits commence as of age 65, and that you're eligible for Social Security. You can always change this if you want to. You can actually do it on Benefits Access, or you can actually, call up our that wonderful, smiling, happy team, the retirement team, and they can actually change that for you as well. So when we're talking about investments and the life stage investment management and actually the rebalancing, when we're looking at this, we're thinking about, okay, let's look at how your mix of funds should be allocated. That's best for you. Let's say that those mix of funds should be, and I'm using just numbers as an example. Let's say that those numbers should be 70% in stocks and bonds, and then 30% in the fixed income. Let's say over time that the amounts wind up going down to, let's say, 50% for stocks and 50% in the bond funds. So we actually want you at being at 70-30. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to have to sell off some of the fixed income bonds, sell some of those off, and actually put that money back into your stocks and bonds to get you back at that 70-30 level, which is where we find that would be optimal for you. And that's what this does. So if you're in life stage investment management, you might see on your statements where there's been some transactions that have been made. You're like, wait, I didn't move anything around. That's the rebalancing that we're doing in the back end. So it's technically your accounts are on autopilot, but it doesn't mean that that is that nothing's being done. Stuff is being done in the background, and it's being looked at quarterly based on your birth date. So that's how the rebalancing works, and how life stage investment management can actually utilize all of our accounts at its most optimized level. When we're looking at investment information, there is so much information out on wespath.org. I'd love for you to be able to go out there and just look at all of this information. You can find all of the funds that we have out there. You find all of the different descriptions, the benchmarks and compared to results, daily values. All that information is out there. Just go ahead and look. Wespath.org has a plethora of information that's out there. Now, we also have information regarding spending retirement right, and this is talking a little bit more about life stage retirement income. This is where, or how you're actually getting money out of your defined contribution accounts. This is actually an award-winning program. We set this up and we actually received an award for it. So we're very proud of that. And this is something to help optimize your monthly retirement income from all of your defined contribution plans. And again, this is something that can be adjusted based on, age, investment, growth, and loss. And again, it's utilizing life stage investment management along with this retirement or life stage retirement income. And again, the goal is to provide monthly payments for your and your survivor's lifetime. Now, again, when we talked about, not wanting to take money out too fast and not wanting to take money out too slow, we want you right in the middle. So just like, kicking a field goal, okay? We want that money, or we want you to have that payment right in the middle, okay? So when you kick that field goal for that, you've got a lot of different room in order to move or have that ball go through. So we want you in the optimum area in there, and in order to be able to give you an increase year over year. So that's where all of this comes into play. And as Frank had mentioned, giving you money on a monthly basis as if it's a defined benefit, but yet it's not. It's your defined contribution money, but paying out on a monthly basis to be able to provide for you and or your spouse's lifetime. Okay, as if it's going to go for your lifetime. Okay. But again, there's many different options with that as well, but that's what this is doing. So how to set this up, you can use the modeling tool that we have in Benefits Access, and it is available for you when you're, when that time is ready for you to actually go out and retire. You can actually combine all of your defined contribution balances into your United Methodist Personal Investment Plan. Again, you decide how much goes into the plan. We will go into a little bit of this during the benefit access demo, but there is some money that you could actually, let's say, set aside as I like to say like an emergency fund. So let's say you have $500,000 in all of your defined contribution balances. If you want to set aside, let's say $50,000, then the calculation is set up for the $450,000, and that's what you'll draw on your monthly benefit from. But should something come up, maybe you need a new roof on the house, maybe you want to take a vacation. You've got that, let's say, emergency fund, the $50,000 that you could actually pull from and actually have as another additional installment or take a distribution from that without upsetting the monthly amount that you're getting. So that's a nice feature, a nice benefit for you to think about. So you can, again, decide how you want that benefit calculated. Again, EY, wonderful resource. So again, you've got flexibility and choices with this when you take those distributions, from all of these funds. You can actually add more into that. So even if you have other monies outside of Wespath, you can still roll that money over into your UMPIP plan, provided it's a qualified, retirement plan. And again, there's no direct costs to you at all to have this service, the life stage investment management and life stage retirement income, no cost to you. Now, there's two additional features that we have along with this, and it's called the Social Security Bridge and the Longevity Income Protection. And I'm going to talk about each of those now that could be options for you in retirement. So let's talk about the Social Security Bridge first. So what this does is it actually supplements you in your earlier retirement years to allow you to wait and defer receiving your Social Security until a later age. So to help you get a higher benefit from Social Security. Let's talk a little bit more about that. If you wind up retiring at, say, 65, and let's say, you want to maybe wait and receive your Social Security benefits until you reach age 70. Age 70 is the magic age where you would, where the most you can receive as a benefit from Social Security would be. Let me just update my example just a little bit. So let's say you're full retirement age. Everybody has a full retirement age, and whatever that's what Social Security deems. And say that full retirement age is actually 67. If you wind up waiting those additional 3 years until age 70, you get an extra 8% per year until age 70 for your Social Security benefit. So an extra 24% can be added into your Social Security benefit. So retiring at age, let's say at full retirement age is what Social Security deems as full retirement age at 67. If you wait until then, you get your benefit now, but you're going to wait until 70 to reach Social Security. You want to actually receive more of that payment now from your life stage account to actually kind of, let's say, supplement what you would be receiving from Social Security because you're waiting until age 70. So you're actually receiving more of that money from your life stage account now. And then once you turn 70, then you'll receive your dependence on the life stage account would be less because then you're getting your Social Security with the extra added increase to it. So that's how this amount will level out. And I'll show you an example of an actual graph to kind of go through it and hopefully help with the visual of it based on what I'm trying to explain in words. So again, that can actually reflect and bridge the gap between when you're actually receiving the benefit to when you actually receive the Social Security benefits. The next option you have is actually utilizing longevity income protection. That is another defined benefit or an annuity that you would receive at the age of 80. You pay for that contract at the time of retiring, and that amount that you would pay is based from, and it would be taken from your defined contribution balances. You pay for that in group insurance rates, and then that you would receive another steady stream of income again at age 80. And then you have peace of mind knowing that you'll have another set of income, that's coming in at age 80. So let's put this into a graph form to help explain what I've just been, stating in my words. When you're at this retirement age, all of your money is going to come from life stage, all going to come from us. Okay. So from the time that you retire until the time you start receiving some additional money from Social Security, all of it's going to come from us. Then when you start receiving Social Security, your dependency on life stage decreases, but then you get the more maximum benefit if you wind up waiting to receive Social Security. Now, you don't have to wait until age 70. You can actually receive the money. You can start at 67, 68, 69, and still receive some additional income for Social Security if you wind up waiting a little bit. But this is just an example if you wind up waiting until 70. Then if you chose the longevity income protection, you would have another stream of income, thereby decreasing your dependency on life stage again, because you have another stream of income, longevity income protection, and then the Social Security in there as well. The Social Security bridge and the longevity income protection, they are optional. You don't have to pick them, okay? So some things to think about saying, is this right for me? So think about your health, think about your family longevity. If you're already receiving Social Security, this is not an option for you. And again, just all these different factors that you want to think about, if you want to participate in this type of a plan. Again, EY is actually there to help you to see if you might be eligible and if this might be right for you. All right, I'm going to stop here. Frank, any other questions before we head over into the housing allowance exclusion?
We received one question relating to contribution remittance under Compass. Local churches generally, the annual conference will bill local churches, but each annual conference will be building its own process and procedure relative to remittance of contributions to them and then to us. So that's kind of an annual conference by annual conference type of environment. Other than that, no other questions have come through.
Frank, can I weigh in on that really quickly?
Sure, please.
Yes.
Yeah, that is going to be the plan, that we will continue to build a local church and we will roll those contributions into that billing Exactly, what time during the month has yet to be determined, but likely about the same time that the normal pension billing goes out.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yep. And again, more information will be coming about Compass and how it affects everyone in the next months and throughout the year. Okay. So now I want to talk about this wonderful tax saving advantage that you have with the housing allowance exclusion. Now, this is going to be a little bit different than if you have a housing allowance when you're active. This is a little bit different when you're in retirement status. So we want you to look at, there's going to be some numbers that are going to be, the amount of the exclusion is going to be the least of these three. The first is the amount that's designated as housing allowance. So generally this comes from the annual conference resolution designating the housing allowance. What this means is that how much, basically how much that you're receiving from Wespath can I claim on my taxes? 100%, 75%. In all the conferences that we've worked with so far, it's always been 100% that of the money that you've received from Wespath is declared as amount that can be designated for your housing allowance. This amount will be distinguished on a 1099-R form, R meaning in retirement. And so you will receive that form at the end of the year and you'll see how much is on that form. So that is your first number. So first number is the amount that you receive on your 1099-R form. The next is how much have you actually expended for housing? What this would include is mortgage, interest, property taxes, your cable bill, your heating and air, anything relating to snow removal, which I heard you guys got some snow in the last day. So if you pay someone to take the snow away, or if you have someone to cut your grass, maybe you need to get some additional appliances for the house. So any expenses for the house, keep them on a spreadsheet, add them all up, and then that yearly amount will be the amount that you've actually expended for housing. The third number that we need to look at is your fair rental value of your house in the area that you live in, including furnishings and utilities. This amount, then you annualize that out, and then we're looking at the least of these three numbers. So as an example, let's say that Reverend Waters actually receives $24,000 in pension for the year. So that's $2,000 a month, okay, to break it down. So that's your first number. That's your designated housing amount that you've received from Wespath. And then now the least amount is, or the housing allowance exclusion is based on the least of these numbers. So again, $24,000 as in the 100% that's actually designated. Let's say all those numbers that you added up in that spreadsheet amounted to about $20,000. So, so all of those things that you added, $20,000. And let's say that you could rent your home for about $1,750. Equating that out to a year, that equals $21,000. So looking at the least of these three numbers, looking at those, the $20,000 is actually the housing allowance exclusion. When you look at this, you subtract your housing allowance exclusion from the amount that you received from Wespath, which is the $24,000, which then means that your taxable amount is $4,000. That's before any other deductions or any other credits that you may have. So again, a really wonderful benefit that you have. This is only available to retired clergy. And this is not applicable to any surviving spouses unless it's a clergy couple. This is for your primary residence only, not for a summer house down in Florida, where Frank is living. And then we do have a worksheet, housing allowance worksheet, and on the second page of that, it actually includes language that you can include on your taxes as to why you're receiving this as a exclusion. And again, when you retire, you'll receive a section from the conference journal showing that this is a benefit that's available to you. So again, Jim,
Yeah,
questions or
exactly
comments?
right along that line. It's not unusual for retirees to contact me for that conference journal item, rather than trying to sift through and trying to find it on their own. We do have online journals, of course, and people can find it that way, but I'm more than happy to send it in email that folks can use for their tax prep.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right.
Yep.
Frank, any other questions on the housing allowance exclusion before we get into the death and disability? I'm going to assume.
No. Actually, I did, another question came in another way, and I'll explain
Okay.
after we get off of this. I'm trying to get an answer to that.
Okay, no worries. All right, let's head into the death and disability. We'll go through this fairly quickly here, just kind of giving an overview of this. So again, the Comprehensive Protection Plan, CPP, plan eligibility. Again, if you are sorry, that's have something in there that I shouldn't have. So mandatory participation, and then you got if you have 3/4 time or leave. And if you're not eligible, you have to have half time or quarter time. For your death benefits, this is for active and retired clergy. There's also a spousal death benefit, a surviving spouse benefit. There's a child as well as surviving child, and the minimum surviving spouse retirement benefit. So a lot of different things that it can provide. For the retiree death benefit eligibility, so again, this is for if you have at least you're eligible to receive a benefit from the CRSP at the time of retirement, and you're actually enrolled in CPP for 12 or the last 15 years, or you've been an active participant in CPP for 25 years. This eligibility is listed on your benefit access page as well. As far as the death benefits, it was updated as of General Conference of 2024 to have a little bit easier time to understand what the actual death benefit is. So it's actually a flat dollar amount for retirees, active participants, and dependents. And these are the amounts that would be eligible should they be needed. Ranging from $8,500 up to $50,000 for active. And retired would be 24. For the long-term disability benefits, so this definition is if you're unable to perform your duties due to injury or illness. Again, the disability amount would be about 70% of your pre-disability plan. That's including housing and your cash salary. If you wind up receiving Social Security during this time, then it's a 1-for-1 offset for that. So just letting you know about that. Again, if you're, I'm just kind of going through this I went through that very quickly. So hopefully there's no other questions on that. But if you do, let us know. Participant resources. Here we go. This is a lot of different resources that we have here at Wespath. So regarding that, we have the retirement benefit projection. So again, everyone received that via email. Again, if you didn't, let us know. We'll make sure that you get it. But want to let you know that this is not an absolute. This is what you're going to get. It's a forecast. There's going to be changes that are happening within the next few months. So, but this is a good projection, an idea of what you could receive during at your retirement time. It does, look for inflation, and it is assumed retirement commencement date. I think some of them I had in there for July 1st of 25, some were for later. And these are your defined contribution account balances are projected using life stage retirement income, as Frank had noted earlier. So that's how these projections are set up. There are let's say our default. This is what we put it as. We did default these projections to be having that 65% for the MPP balance as an annuity. You can have additional projections run if you want to have that as a defined contribution. We can run that as well. Also, or you can run that yourself through benefits access. This is, again, what a sample of the benefit projection looks like. So again, you can kind of see that on there. The top part is your defined benefits, so the amount that you're going to receive for your lifetime. The middle part there is your defined contribution, all the different amounts that you can have in there for your flexibility. And then it is in 4 pages, so there's additional information on those additional 4 pages as well. EY Financial Planning Services. This, again, wonderful resource. If you haven't contacted them yet, feel free to do it. They will walk through all the numbers with you, maybe give you some additional ideas as far as, should I take all the benefits right away? Should I wait on some of those? If I didn't mention, I think I might have mentioned it, but if I didn't, I want to stress it right now. As far as your, if you, for your CRSP defined benefit, that formula benefit that we talked about, if you're 65 or have 40 years of service, there is absolutely no reason for you to wait to take that benefit. If you don't take that benefit, then you're actually would be losing money that you're entitled to. All the other benefits you can wait if you want, but that defined benefits for CRSP, if you're 65 or 40 years of service, take that right away. Okay. Another thing that EY, that they will tell you that as well. But again, they'll work through all of your numbers to see what would be best for you and your family in retirement. But what are some questions that you can actually work through with EY? How much can I afford for housing and retirement? Again, if this is going to be the first time you are actually buying a house, they can help you with that. Maybe look at how much you can pull out for a down payment or something. What will my income look like? Again, that's why you're here. That's why you want to know how much you will be receiving in retirement. They can help with that as well. Should I choose a higher or lower COLA? That is something that they can help you determine as well. How do I secure a down payment for housing is what I mentioned earlier. And should I use the loan feature now for a distribution? One thing that I didn't mention is there are different ways to take money in retirement. One of those factors is you could take a loan from us. And that's such a unique opportunity that you have available to you. That is where you actually take money out of your account, but you are not paying anybody else back except for yourself. There is interest that you need to pay, and I believe right now that amount is 7.5% plus 2% for plus an additional 2%, so it's 9.5%. And that would be money that you're actually paying yourself back. So that's a way that you can actually utilize money in while you're active as well as in retirement. So that's wonderful questions to ask EY, but they're also not there just for this. They can actually help you with any other question you may have. No question is too big or too small for them. If you want to buy or lease a car, maybe you want to ask them, based on your financial situation, what would be best for you? So they're there to help. Again, you've got a lot of people in your corner who can help you through any questions you have. Another way that you can actually have questions answered is through us, through the Wespath virtual one-on-one consultations. This is actually where you meet with one of our Wespath educators. So myself, Frank, who's also on the call, and then we have 2 others, Todd, who's actually in that laptop picture, as well as our manager, Bob Christoffel. Either any of us can actually help you through any personalized question that you may have regarding all this information that I've given you today, as well as any others that you may have. You can go to us at that consultation link, and you can actually pick your date and time when you like to meet. We like to have these kind of a little bit more controlled. So we only have information out there right now for March. And then maybe around toward the end of the month, we'll have slots open for April. So we do have physicians available. These are 30-minute consultations. They are not meant to be a one and done. They can be, but if you have additional questions, feel free to, we can set more of these up for you. Okay, we want to, again, make sure you have all your questions answered for and through retirement. Action planning. Right. If you haven't already registered for benefits access, please do. go ahead and register for them. You can get there 2 ways. You can go through, scan it, or you can, or 3 ways actually. Scan that. You can actually go to benefitsaccess.org, or the place I like to go to is wespath.org. And then in the upper right-hand corner, there's a button there for benefits access. That way you kind of, get to see what our website's like, and actually go out there and view other things. When you go out there, make sure that you look at your beneficiaries. Again, very important. If you happen to pass, we need to get a hold of your beneficiaries, and we need to have that information updated appropriately. Other action planning steps, you want to, again, review and update your UNPIP contribution rate. If you want to review the life stage investment management profile, look at that tool, the benefit projection tool, call EY, and maybe actually register for a benefit education consultation. Here are the actual numbers for the retirement team that they can help you. And also want to give a quick plug for our live from Wespath. We're going to have that on Wednesday, April 30th at 11 o'clock. We're going to talk about all sorts of information regarding insights from Wespath around the new Compass plan, and again, talk about investments and well-being and lots more. So wonderful event. We've had it the last couple of years. This is number 3. We've had great feedback on it. So feel free to go ahead and register for that as well. So that actually concludes my presentation for right now. So any questions that have come in, Frank?
No additional questions came in. I'll just echo, encouraging people to take advantage of the benefit education consultations. Like Cheryl said, you go in, you register, you have them. It's not a one and done type of thing. Spouses are welcome as long as you are there. If you already are working with an individual financial advisor, that financial advisor is also welcome as long as you are there. We can always schedule offline an hour if that was going to be the case. So, and really what we have found over the course of the last couple of years is that people who are going to engage with EY will kind of come to us to kind of get a little bit more foundational information around their situation as it relates to Wespath, and then be better prepared for that consultation with EY. So we'd love to do them, and we'd love to see you in the future.
Definitely. Well, wonderful. So feel free to continue to put questions in the Q&A box. And Jim?
Can I
Question?
ask one? When it comes to if somebody is going to be retiring, for lack of a better word, off season, in other words, somebody wants to retire in November, is the required date to make their choices the last day of October? Or does that change? I mean, is it always the last day of the month prior to their retirement?
That is correct. It'd be the last day of the month prior to the retirement. But again, they have multiple, time to do it ahead of time. But that would be the last date. Yes,
Got it.
before.
Thank you.
Yes, definitely. All right. Well, we will take a short break. We will come back at 11 o'clock on the dot. We're going to go through a benefit access demo. The system can be a little, slower when we're sharing it via this format, but please, bear with us. We will get through as much as we can. We will go through that from 11 to 11:30, and then we'll have at 11:30 we'll have EY Catherine Chris Martin will be on the call, and then she'll share her EY presentation, and then we'll have a wrap up. But for right now, go ahead and take that break, come back at 11, and we will see you shortly. All right, welcome back, everyone. I'm seeing 11 o'clock on the dot, so I am going to come back and talk to you about the benefit access demo. This is what the screen will look like when you are actually going into your benefit access page. So when I mentioned going into benefits access, you can go in through wespath.org and click on a button that's up over in here saying benefit access. Click on that, or just go right into benefit access. This is what you will see. You've got summary, retirement, life and disability. What we're interested, of course, is retirement. So as you can see on this initial screen, it's showing you both of them. We want to come back over to retirement. All right. Now from here, you actually have other subcategories underneath here. Okay. Where you're going to be actually selecting your benefits is actually going to be under accounts. So retirement, accounts, and then another little drop down box comes up. All these different options that you can actually look at. What I want you to go into is account summary. So retirement, accounts, account summary, and then this box will populate. So for right now, the demo is working really well. So when you are actually have your um, election for your retirement set up in our system, you will see this box on the top here. You're going to see this happy man with the glasses. He's got all these little wrinkles around his eyes. He's smiling. He's smiling. He doesn't have wrinkles. It's smile lines. So what you want to do is come into here and click on this review and manage your retirement benefits. See how you can click on that? So click right on that. This is where it might take a little bit of time to actually have the system upload. So if you're not in our system as having set up for retirement, that box will not show. But once you are in there, then this will be one of your options. So when you have options out here, and I'll show you when we get there, the options are going to be looking at your CRSP defined benefit. We'll have looking at your MPP, and then there's also a UMPP or your retirement uh, life stage retirement income. So as we're coming into this, this is the first screen that you're going to see. This is showing all your different benefits and what approximately the monthly benefits could be. When you scroll down just a little bit here, you're going to have these options for your lifetime income, and then also under your life stage retirement income. This is for your defined contribution accounts. All of these are for your lifetime income, your defined benefits. The first one we'll go ahead and start with is again, this is just a demo. It's nobody's account. And actually this one has a pretty too, if you wanted to put something in there for that. Once you go through one or, a couple of these, it's kind of repetition from there. From here, to start to have your benefits, to start selecting your benefits, you want to go to Get Started. See, you can click on that button. See the little hand turns over. So you can click on Get Started, and then we wait for it to come back up. Now from here, it says that it's going to be one of 7 steps. Don't be alarmed by the number of steps. They're really short steps. From here, you want to select your first payment date. If you're retiring as of July 1st, then you just want to come over here to this arrow down box and then just select July 1st. Okay. If it's for a different date, as you can see, you've got different dates in here. You could select any of those dates. Again, for demo purposes, these are the dates that we have in here. So we'll select July 1st, and we're just going to hit continue. Now for step 2 of 7, we want to make sure that you, this is someone who is married. So we want to make sure that you've actually reviewed their information. So, and again, in this case, Janice CS is our spouse's name. This is her date of birth, and we have her social number. You need to review all that information and check this box that it's correct. If you don't do that, you can't click on this continue button, so it won't let you. Okay, it's a little bit lighter blue. So you do need to check on this box saying that you did verify that all the information is correct. Click on that box and see how that turned blue. And now I can click on it. And then that's all you need to do. And then also that you designate your spouse as your continuing annuitant. And then we hit continue. And then from here, we are actually going to be picking your CRSP defined benefit lifetime benefit. Now, as we went through in the presentation, you have different forms of benefit. And then again, there was 2 different time frames because of that different calculation with that factor, 1.25% or 1%. So there's 2 different areas that you do need to click and pick your benefit. So our system defaults to the life in 70%, but if you don't want that as a benefit, say you want the life in 100, just click on that little radio button next to it, and then that line will highlight for you. And then you will see in real time what that amount will be that you would be receiving. So as you can see, this amount here is 401.77. And again, that's the life. This is the life column to you, and then your contingent annuitant. Okay, so either whatever one you pick, I'm just going to go back to the default. And then again, that's for this first time period. That's for the 1.25%. And then for the 1%, you do have to pick another one here as well. So again, you have options. You can actually pick a different option for up here versus down here, whatever you'd like. Options up to you. Now, again, if you're married, you do have the option to pick the life only, but then you are going to need to have your spouse actually complete a form saying that they know that they will not receive this as a benefit. So we're going to go, excuse me, I'm just going to stick with the default that's here. But also from this screen, you also have the ability to pick your COLA, so your cost of living adjustment. Now, this will show you what the changes will be in real time, which is a really great feature. Right now, it's set as a 2% for the COLA. I want you to look at this 485.65 number. Just keep your eyes focused on that. I'm going to change this COLA amount to 5%. I'm going to just go from the highest to lowest, or lowest to the highest, and just for you to be able to see how that number changes, how drastically it changes. So here we go. 5% went down to 330.28. Okay. So again, in real time, seeing how much your benefit will change if you went with a different COLA. Okay, and you go 4, 3, and changes really nicely. Okay, so again, if you don't know what to pick, EY is a wonderful resource for you. After you've made your decisions for this defined benefit for the both areas, and you picked your COLA for that benefit, you can hit continue. From here, you'll enter in tax information. Now, again, you can contact EY or your financial or your tax preparer to see what could be best for you. For ease of this calculation, we have an option that you can actually fill in that if we scroll down, you can actually check here if you do not want federal income taxes withheld from your payments. If you do want to have taxes withheld, unclick that button, and then you'll be able to put in some other amounts in here if you'd like. So that's something that you can do. You can certainly click on if it's married and family jointly. For the ease of the calculation, we're just going to go ahead and stick in that we've not going to be taking any federal income tax from our payments. Put in if your state of residence isn't already located or put in there, go ahead. It should. Minnesota should come up. Go ahead and put that there. And once you have that completed, we just hit continue. So we're already cruising along. This is the next screen where you put in your bank information. So as we mentioned, all of the deposits, all the payments are actually put in through direct deposit. So what you can do is you can put in your name of your bank, whether it's going to be checking or savings, and then your bank routing number and your account number. And it shows you where this information is on one of your checks. So this is where you get the routing number, and this is where you get your account number from. Okay. Once you have that information in there, it will save for all of your other benefits that you put in or that you sign up for, which is a really wonderful feature. You don't have to type all that information in again. Okay. Once you have that in there, you can just hit continue. Next up will be just reviewing and verifying all this information that you put in on the previous 5 screens. So we've got, first payment date, you got your spouse information in there, you've got your payments, with a 2%, you picked life and 70 with 2% COLA. This is what the estimated monthly amount will be. Again, just verifying the information we have in the system, your bank and information. You do have to read all of this. And then you do see, I can't check submit yet because we have another box we have to check. This box here says, I have read and agree to the terms and conditions as stated above. And you say that this is correct. We're going to click on that box. And now I can actually click submit. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, clicking submit. And then it'll come up with a page that says, congratulations, or confirmation. You've completed that benefit. Okay, and it gives all that information again, stating, just reviewing all of that you put in there. Now, that's your first benefit. So we've done one, okay? Excuse me. If I was in the room with you, I'd say, okay, where do we go next? We're going to go back to, we're under retirement already. We're going to go back to accounts, account summary, happy man with the glasses. Click on that again. And now we're coming back down to where we choose our benefits, and this is saying pending. Okay, it shows that we actually did it. All right, so it's out there. Okay, so if ever you want to change that, you're always welcome to do that. Also, you can always check on the you can view your pending, and if you wanted to change it, you're able to do that. You can actually hit cancel, and then you can go back in and do those steps again. Okay. So again, go back to accounts, account summary, happy man with the account summary. There we go. Happy man with the glasses. And then we can go into, since the system is playing so nicely with us, we'll try going into the MPP plan. Okay, so we click on the get started. Kind of have the same type of situation or same steps that we're going to have. So this is where you would actually pick what you would like your MPP benefit to be. Do you want it to be the annuity option, or do you want it to be under the defined contribution? That will determine which button you click here. If you want to keep it as an annuity, then we click this button. If you want it as a one-time distribution, we click here, meaning for your defined contribution. So if we wanted to go ahead and get started with the annuity, we're just going to go ahead and click here. And from here, again, the first step of 7, we're going to go ahead and change that date again to July 1st. Hit continue. Go ahead and review all of your contingent annuitant information. Click that I verify the spouse's information, and we hit continue. Again, if you have any questions regarding any of this information, you can feel free to contact our customer solutions team, and they will help you through all of this as well. Again, from here, this is where you're going to choose what kind of benefit you want. Do you want the life and 70, life and 85, or life and 100? Again, you can choose any amount you would like. Whatever that radio button is, that's what it'll choose. I'm going to go ahead and choose the life and 100% this time. And again, this is where you can choose your COLA. Again, so if we want to look at that number, 1,089.78, we change it to 5%, look how much it comes down. Okay, so I'm going to keep it back to the 2%, but again, you can also have 0% for your COLA as well. So that's also an option for the MPP benefit. I'm going to change it back to the 2% so we can see how much that is. And then once we're happy with those numbers, we hit continue. Again, tax withholding information. Again, information you can put here, but I'm already, I have this checked for the do not want any federal income tax withheld for Minnesota, and hit continue. Again, that information is saved here for your banking information. So again, we don't have to do anything with that. If you want to just verify it's all correct again. If it is, then we hit continue. Then you want to set up your verifying your MPP annuity. So again, this is the amount that it is being based on, life in 100%, 2% COLA, the amount that you would receive, verifying all your personal information. Again, you have to read all of this information and read and agree that you understand that of the information above and that your personal information is correct. Click on the box. Now you can hit submit, and bingo, bango, chango. It's going to say that you are able you've got the confirmation. All right. Now I'm going to go back to the to where we sign up for our benefits. And again, if I was in the room with you, we'd be doing this together. Accounts, account summary, happy man with the glasses. And then come back over here and scroll down to our benefits. And here we are. We've got 2 of them that are pending now. Okay. Now, if you want to go ahead and start your defined contributions, that would be under this life stage retirement income. So that would be here. So those screens are a little bit different. So let's go ahead and start that. Let's get started. Still have about good 13 minutes left here. So we're getting a good demo here. So from this screen, this is we can start here. The options are on the left-hand side here. The program overview, you can actually watch a 4-minute video with our department manager, Martin Bauer. He walks you through just a wonderful explanation of what this life stage retirement income is to help you understand. So you can click on that if you like. But to start the actual process, we come over here to the Social Security estimate. Now, in my presentation, I did mention that you can go to ssa.gov and you can see all of your work history and all of the amounts that you have. And it also provided with you with about how much you would be receiving from Social Security per month. That amount is what you can put here. Enter what your estimated Social Security amount would be. So that is where you can put that. If the number is different, say it's $2,000, you can put that there. And also from this here, you have 3 options: not receiving a benefit, already receiving benefits, or you're opted out of Social Security. If you're already receiving benefits, then you don't have this as an option. The other question below disappears. If you've opted out of Social Security, also, you don't have that as an option. If you're not receiving benefits yet, this is where you put in your Social Security amount. So let's just say I'm putting in $2,000. Okay, and I'm going to hit submit. It then is going to take you down to the next step. And the next step is determining your 65% options. So we've got it as the keeping 65% as an annuity. And that's how we set up the MPP already. And this is showing you how much amounts can be over the years. And if you wanted to if you wanted to change that to include 65% as part of your retirement or through your defined contribution, then your options that you would have picked for MPP would change. So you would need to cancel your pending action that you have for the MPP as an annuity, and then you can change it to having it be under life stage retirement income instead of an annuity. Your funding for life stage, again, these are the amounts that you, again, as in this example, the MPP 35%. You have your CRISP defined contribution as well as your UMPIP amount. This amount equates out to, $323,000 and change. And if you wanted life stage retirement income to fund or to get an idea of how much you can receive on a monthly basis, you can put your full amount in there. Or this is where you can actually change it to, let's say, have a certain amount set aside for your, let's say, emergency fund. And if you wanted to do that, you can change this amount. And let's just say, I'm going to put in here $300,000. So the additional $23,000 will be, let's say, your emergency fund. To find out what your amounts would be, then you would just recalculate, and then it's showing you how much your benefit would be. Okay. The next step as you scroll down is if you wanted to have this be, if you wanted to include money in your Social Security bridge. So if you wanted to change this, you can use, so having utilizing more of your funds for from your life stage account so that you can offset and not have your benefit start for Social Security until later. This is where you can see how much you can receive from life stage and then waiting until later on when you have when you receive the full amount for Social Security with the extra credits, then that will be your amount that you receive then for with Social Security. MPP is your annuity, so that's what this is showing. Life stage, again, you'll receive full amount of your benefits through there, but then your dependency on it will reduce when you actually receive Social Security. You can slide this over and have these numbers change, have these recalculated. So you can definitely play with it with you like. You're not going to break anything. You can definitely play with it all that you like. Or again, contact EY and they can help you through, and they have access to these as well. Now, again, that's optional if you want. And then also you'll have that longevity income protection. And so this will tell you if you are eligible for it. This is saying that you're not, so it's not an option for you. But for others who might have some additional money in there, then it would be an option for them. And then after you click on that, then you can click on review and enroll. So again, you're just looking at this again. You're funding, you're funding 93% of your full amount that you have, is your amount, and keeping a certain amount set aside as like an emergency fund. The MPP, we kept as a 65% as annuity. We did a bridge up to 69, and then not doing the longevity income protection. And then you can click to enroll, and then you pick your date when you're going to enroll. And this is showing what your monthly amount would be. And then we go through these steps now. Then you have your federal taxes. Say that if you're married, you click that. Step 2, if you want to put in any additional tax information, you can. Let's see. Otherwise, if you don't want any taxes withheld, you can just click the check step 5 box. And then that would be for the federal, and you have state we have the correct state here. Click continue. Again, these screens look just like the ones we had just looked at earlier, as far as putting in your bank information. We agree and submit. And now, once this goes through, then you'll have another one that is pending. So this is where we're actually verifying all of our information again. Okay, review all of this information, have to click that box again that you've read and agree to the terms. Now you can hit submit. And again, this will be your benefit that you will have starting as of July 1st. Okay, now I'm going to go back to account summary. Happy Man with the glasses is coming up. There you go. Click on that. Our wheels are spinning. And now we have another one that we have set up as pending. So we've got the Clergy Retirement Security Program defined benefit. We have the MPP annuity, and that's pending. And now we also have our life stage retirement income is also in a pending status. Okay. Now, again, if ever you want to change any of these, you can just go ahead and click on the pending status. And you have all 3 of these that you can actually change or cancel if you like. Maybe you want to go ahead and not do the Social Security bridge. that we already put in there, or maybe you want the full amount, that 323,000 calculated for your monthly benefit. You can change that. You can go through all those steps again, and you can make those updates. Okay. Otherwise, and so it's simple to cancel. Let's go ahead and just cancel this one just so that you can see it. So life stage retirement income, we're canceling. And then it's going to ask you if you really want to go ahead and cancel, because sometimes we can click on something we don't mean to. So do you really want to cancel it? And then I'm going to say, yes, I actually do want to cancel it. So I'm going to cancel. And then that one will be off the list that we have for our pending items. See, that one's gone. So we have two others that we can, that are still, if we still say they're good, then we will keep them. Again, you have up until June 30th at 3 o'clock Central to make your elections. Once that 3 o'clock on June 30th comes, then all the calculations are going to be made and on the back end, and that's when your benefits will commence. When your benefits commence, it's, that's whatever information we have in our system is what the benefits will be. If you choose not to put money or commence your benefits right away, then you can definitely hold off on starting these until, again, your required minimum distribution age, or when you get closer to that 73 mark, or whenever you'd like. But again, if you're 65 or 40 years of service, take this defined benefit right away. Again, no reason to wait. All right. And again, others you can wait if you like. And then whatever time frame you wait, say maybe you want to wait until January of next year, you can do that. You're already in your retired status. You can start this then, and you can go forward with those calculations. So I'm going to end a couple of minutes early. So any questions that maybe have come up with this benefit access demo?
No questions came up. However, I just want to point out that I don't think on our demo you can see this. When you go to the life stage retirement income area, there's a lot going on there, right? I mean, we're all watching all of that and it's like, okay, remember to do this, click on that. And granted, there's a lot happening. When you go to your accounts, you click on that link with the smiling man, you see your account, you go to life stage retirement income, and you see all of those, that whole table of things for you to do. Up on the top, there's a Sync Now button. What that means is that picture of the retirement team that you saw about 3 hours ago that Cheryl shared with us, the retirement team. If you call a member of the retirement team, you can ask them to go through and set things up so you can see what it looks like, and then you two hit Sync Now, or you can go ahead and set it up the way you want it set up and then Sync Now, and then the retirement team individual and you will see exactly the same thing at the same time. So it's another layer of support that we're providing when you're actually in your record starting to make decisions and what does that life stage retirement income election look like. So I just wanted to point that out to you.
Yes.
And then I think now, Cheryl, I'll come off the question box. We're going to pass it over to Catherine, and I will wish everybody a wonderful day.
Yes. All right. So, so again, make sure you put your questions in the Q&A box. Now I am going to stop sharing. And our next presenter is Catherine Crisp Martin. She is, I've listened to her presentations before, and she gives a wonderful presentation, very knowledgeable about all the EY topics that she has. So Catherine, I'm going to go ahead and put it over to you. And are you able to share your screen?
I hope so.
Yes, so you're talking about estate planning basics.
That is correct. I have that topic up first,
All
and then we'll
right.
be following that with Social Security and your retirement planning needs.
Excellent. All right, so I will be in the background, Catherine, if people have questions, and I might pop up and if there are any questions, but I'm going to leave it off to you. Take it away.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I always enjoy this opportunity to be able to show up at these meetings and share information. that we have about the Wespath benefits and all of the program. I was excited when I signed on. I got a chance to hear a part of Cheryl's presentation. I personally don't have access to the benefits system, and so it was really great to see the information that you do have available there. But the good news is the planners we have at EY can help you with all of the different things that you're doing, and they're very familiar and trained with your benefits program. So I'm going to get started first this morning with estate planning basics. My name is Catherine Crisp Martin. I've been with EY now for 11 years, but it's probably been a good 20 plus years that I have taught different classes focused on understanding financial planning, benefits, and estate planning. So I do love to come to these types of programs and really help you understand some of the things you can do to have a good plan. And hold on just a second. I usually change glasses so I can actually see my screen a little bit better. So there, that's great. I'm up here like, why is this blurry? Okay. So our focus today is talking about estate planning and what our objectives are. We really want you to understand what an estate encompasses, and then we'll be reviewing the pros and cons of the probate process. Also, we've got information in here to help you understand about trusts and their role in estate planning, because depending on where you live, you might want to do something with a trust, and also depending on where the money is going to be going when you are no longer here. So all of those are important things that you'll need to think about. And then we focus on the different estate planning documents. Most people are familiar with a will, but there are definitely other documents that everybody should have in addition to a will or in addition to a trust as well. And we'll talk a little bit about estate taxes, and we'll look at the different tools and resources that you do have available to you. Now, I'm going to be covering a couple of topics today. First is estate planning. The first 4 slides or so, they are the same in both presentations. So I'm planning on really going through them in a little bit more detail in this first one. You'll see them when I move to the next presentation, but I'll go through them much more quickly when we get to the second presentation. So most importantly, we always want you to understand the different resources that you do have. So our first slide is really looking at the resources available through the Wespath organization. And that website, there's information on your benefits and your investments, as well as details about your investment funds. Another great resource at wespath.org are plan documents or summary plan descriptions. All of the different programs that you are enrolled in through Wespath, they actually have these detailed documents which describe a lot of the kind of little details about how the various programs work. So I always encourage people to check out the summary plan descriptions and plan documents, and you can find those at wespath.org. Of course, benefits access, you can see there's a lot of great information there. And of course, Cheryl was just demonstrating some of that with the tools and the resources you have available there. And of course, you have an 800 number where you can contact the benefits and investment team if you have questions or need assistance. And you can even complete your paperwork as Cheryl was demonstrating. You can complete a lot of this information right there online. But the other big resources that you have, the other big resource that you have is you also have access to all of the tools through the EY Navigate program. So let me tell you a little bit more about that. And that's who I'm with, that's who I represent. We have the EY Navigate planner line. Now, before I even get into talking about these programs, what's most important to me is that I share with you that there is no charge for any of the services through EY. These are all being provided through your relationship with the Wespath benefits. So you won't have to pay to call our planner line. You won't have to pay to work with one of them in understanding the benefits access. You won't have to pay to access our website or to use our app. All of those services are available for you at no charge. So we really do encourage you to reach out, and if you haven't already, to start to work with one of our planners. With the planner line, there is no cost and there's no limit on the number of calls. Really, if you have any financial related question of any kind, you can call our planner line. It is confidential and it's really unbiased because we don't manage anybody's money. So what we're trying to do when you talk to one of our planners is we're trying to give you the pros and cons of any financial decision you might be thinking about so that you can make that informed decision. And so that's really our focus when you call our planner line. They're trained on your benefits. On average, our planners have about 7 years of financial planning experience. They only work with people who are employees of corporations, and those corporations happen to be clients of EY. And we don't manage people's money, so we don't have a conflict of interest in anything or any information we might be sharing with you. And when you call, you can actually call and make appointments and talk to the same planner each time. So you kind of build your relationship with your phone-based planner. And we've got some long hours, as you can see, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. and that is Eastern time. And we have it set up so that you can basically make an appointment. And then you want to talk to that same planner, you just make an appointment again with that same planner. So we just try to make it as easy as possible, but they're available to assist you throughout this process. And if it's you and your spouse and you both want to be on the phone and listen in on the conversation, you're always welcome to do that as well. In addition, you also have access to our EY Navigate digital website. So there's tons of information on our website. There are articles, there are short videos, there are calculators that can help you through understanding various financial components of your program. There are resources and ways to calculate how can I make my money last and so on. So lots of information is available there. And in addition to having access to this through the internet, you can also download our EY app and have all of that same information right there at your fingertips on your smartphone or your tablet. You can see the address right there. It's wespath.eynavigate.com. Another thing that we do every single month is we do have group learning. So we have about 35 clients that offer this program or these programs to their employees. And every month we have different financial topics. So if you've never attended one of our webinars, this is a great opportunity to kind of highlight that. We have a different one each month, and we're going to have that same topic that month is going to be broadcast 2 different times on 2 different days within the month. So early in the month and later in the month. The topic for March is Start Your Career on the Right Financial Path. Now, you and I, we might be a little bit past that one, but there are a lot of topics that are applicable for somebody who has been in the workforce a bit longer. In May, we're going to have Social Security Simplified. In June, it's On Your Mark, Get Set, Retire. So there's lots of different topics that we have. The other thing I love about these webinars, they're about a half an hour long. If you want to watch it while it's being broadcast live, you can type questions into the chat box and they will answer those questions at the end. But what I love about it is we then save them on the website, and you can literally go on the website, go to the webinars, and watch the replays on demand. I've never actually sat in on a live webinar. I always watch them at a later date. I always want to leave that space open, for one of our client contacts or one of the employees of our clients. So I don't want to take up a space when they're broadcasting live. But I love the fact that I can go on the website, click open that tab right there, and listen along as they talk through the materials. I especially like that sometimes what I'll do is I'll pause and back it up and hear them say it again. Sometimes it takes a little bit for things to sort of sink in. But you do have access to all of these different resources. And we do have an app where things are a little bit more simplified to access on that tiny screen of your tablet or your smartphone. So feel free to download that. And it's available on Android devices and also on your Apple iOS devices. And I love we have this slide in our presentations because I am a big person with my notebooks. I always have a notebook with me. I like to keep it open to a blank page just in case I need to make any notes. I am definitely a list maker. And so what we do encourage you to do with all of this information when you're talking about your financial life and retirement and all these important topics is write down, what do you plan on doing? I even have some reminders at the end of this section to give you a few things that you might want to think about doing, because we will be talking about estate planning. But what are the things you're going to need to do? All of this information, it's only as good as if you put it into action. So I do encourage you to do that. And I also want to comment on the fact that you do have access to our services as an active employee through the EY program. And if you are retired with Wespath, as long as you have a $10,000 balance in your UMPIP account, you can still access our services. So let's move on over and start talking about estate planning. So how much do you know about estate planning? So I'm going to go through these statements and give you just a second to think about them. Are they true or are they false? So first of all, estate planning is only important for the wealthy. I think of movies years ago where they would gather in the library to read the person's will. So when I see this statement, I always want to say, estate planning is only important for the wealthy. And of course, by saying it that way, I'm pretty sure you can guess that it's probably false. Oh, hold on. I hit click too soon there. Estate planning is only for people who are old. Well, sadly, this one is not true. We really don't know what might happen. And I'm sure with the people I'm talking to today, you're in the ministry and you have seen circumstances where a younger person has an untimely death, and it's quite shocking for the family and so on, as well as even older people where they were in great shape and they did lots of things, and yet they might pass away in an unexpected manner. So the reality is we really don't know. So it's a good idea to do this planning. And so that is not true. A lot of people think that if you own your property jointly, that it makes estate planning unimportant. And that is not true. A lot of estate planning is going to depend on the rules and regulations in the state you are living in at the time you pass away. But it is important really for you to document what you want to happen to your property. And it's so much easier to do if you can do it when you're not in the midst of the situation where a person is now very ill and, might be passing soon, and now they're scrambling and the family's trying to rush to take care of things. Really, a lot of this is so much better if you can do this when everybody's feeling great. Nobody wants to talk about it, but it's such an important topic that you really should. And some people think that spouses automatically inherit everything, and that's not true either. It really depends on the rules in that state, and if you have kids or if you have adopted kids. So there's so many rules and regulations. So our focus here is just kind of giving you a good overview and an education, maybe a spotlight into some of the things you will want to do to put your estate plan together. I was reading some statistics recently, and they said 67% of the folks out there have no estate planning documents. Like they've literally done nothing. I have a very close girlfriend, and she and I will talk about this kind of stuff because her husband passed away when he was like 45. So she's now in her 60s, and like me, she's got all this paperwork and it's all set up. But meanwhile, she has 3 siblings and they've done absolutely nothing. So I do know a lot of people that they've done nothing, but I would really encourage you to take this topic seriously and start to do your estate planning. So what can it do for you? You know what it really does is it helps distribute your property according to your wishes, and it helps to take care of survivors' needs. You can specify wishes for medical treatment and for handling your personal affairs. And the main thing here I want you to hear, and we're talking about it as we get into this presentation, is it's not just what do I need when I'm no longer here? What paperwork is needed when I'm no longer here? Some of the documents you'll prepare will be what to do if you are here, but you can't make your own decisions. You can't direct what you want to happen to you. So we're going to talk about that full range of documents you need, both while you're still alive as well as when you pass away. So specifying wishes for medical treatment, handling your personal affairs, whether you are still alive but unable to make those decisions, or if you've passed away. Managing gifting during your lifetime and after you pass away, including giving money to charity. And overall, there's a focus here as well in helping to minimize estate taxes. Right now, estate taxes for many people are not a big issue, but you should pay attention because they can change the laws and regulations, and it might make your own personal situation a little bit different. So what is an estate? Your estate basically consists of everything you own, as well as any money or assets that are in your name. So do you have a home, a retirement plan, life insurance, a bank account, any of those things? The bottom line is if you say yes to any of these things, then you have an estate. So what can estate planning do for you? Well, the main thing is these first two things here. It's going to help distribute your property according to your wishes and help take care of your survivors' needs during their lifetime. We're going to look at each one of these areas, but a lot of this is going to start with the most commonly used document everybody has heard of, and that is having a will. So let's start with that. So what does a will do? What a will does is it makes your wishes legal. It helps your heirs handle your estate during a very difficult time. And what can you do with a will? You can document who's going to be in charge of doing all this stuff. Basically, who's your personal representative or your executor. Also, if you have children who are under 18, you need to name a potential guardian. Otherwise, the state you live in is going to decide what happens to any children who are under 18, or if you had a child with special needs that's under guardianship. Also, it will document who will receive your property when you die. So your will is sort of that first line document, which says, here's what I want to happen to things. Now, here's sort of the good news, the bad news. Let's say you do absolutely nothing and you die without a will. That's called dying intestate. That's what that term means. I died without the requisite legal requirements to give away my property. In that case, it then falls to the regulations in your state as to what happens to your property. And a lot of that will depend on what property is involved. Do you have children? How old are they? And so on. So it really will fall to the state. So that's why it's a great opportunity for you to do your will and really say, here is what I want to happen when something happens to me. Especially if you do have children who are under 18. So what controls distribution of property? Because a lot of people think, well, if I have a will, I'm good. Not exactly. Of course, it's more complicated than that, right? On the right-hand side, this is what would happen with your will. These are for any assets you own outright. It's for any assets where you have a percentage that you own as tenants in common. It's for any community property if you happen to be in a community property state. At least 50% has to go to your spouse unless your spouse has signed away their rights to that. Those things will go through your will and they'll go through probate. And probate is a special process where it has to be reviewed and approved by the probate court before things can then be passed to your heirs. So if it's with your will, it then goes through the probate process. But there are certain things that don't go through the probate process. And some people are very focused on that, especially in states where the probate process is very expensive. If you have assets where you hold them in joint tenancy, and the rest of that acronym stands for with right of survivorship. So JTWROS, it's joint tenancy with right of survivorship. Those assets will basically go to the joint tenants. So whoever is the last alive with something like that, they automatically get whatever that particular asset is. And then for those of you who have retirement plans, which you do, a 403B or an IRA account, or if you have life insurance, those types of programs, along with trusts, those will go to the beneficiaries. As a matter of fact, a lot of times people will think, well, everything's just going to go to who I've named in my will. So let's say in my will, I say everything goes to my two sons, Gregory and Bradley, in equal percentages. So that might be one way of doing it. So I've got everything going to my two sons. That's what it says in my will. But then on my investment account, I name my best friend. And that would be assuming my husband has predeceased me, but I probably would, he's probably going to get some share of that too. But assuming he predeceased me, then it all goes to my best friend. And I don't have my two sons named on that. So some people will think, oh, well, it's going to go according to your will. And the answer to that is not exactly. Your will actually just speaks for things that aren't already spoken for. So if the documents on the left are all going to beneficiaries that are listed in those documents, and there's no reason those people cannot inherit that property, that's where it's going to go. So the money itself, it would really go to my friend, whereas my sons would be left with whatever's in the house and potentially the value of the house and so on. But they wouldn't get what's in your IRA or your 403B or your 401k or what have you. So one important point that we put on this slide, we always remind people to review your beneficiary designations, including your 403B, your pension, your life insurance, and so on. Make sure those are updated. Now, you've probably heard the phrase where there's a will, there's a way. Well, in the context of estate planning, it might be more appropriate to say where there's a will, there's probate, because it has to go through that legal process first. So what is probate? This is a special court designated to probate wills. The court approves your executor, or if you don't have a will, they are going to name an executor. They have basically a list of attorneys, and they're going to go down the list and say, it's John's turn or it's Jane's turn to be executor on this next estate. And the judge will then supervise the distribution of assets and payment of debts according to either what the will says or what the state you live in says if you don't have a valid will. And what are the pros and the cons of the probate process? Well, the pros are the court's going to determine the validity of the will. It does allow the will to be challenged. The court supervises distribution of assets and valuation of any assets if they need to be determined what the value of that asset is worth. Also, they're going to determine any payments to creditors if they're creditors that are claiming against the estate for various bills. And the creditor must then report to the court and the heirs when everything is completed. Here's one of the big negatives. One of the big negatives is the cost. And I live in Texas, and we actually have a fairly streamlined probate process. It goes pretty quickly, and it doesn't have a huge percentage of statutory fees associated with probate. But I'm originally from California, and I have family members there where what they've done is they've put their house in particular into a trust. And I worked with my aunt and her daughters this past year to sort of coach them through that process. I'm not an attorney. I don't do any of this stuff. They were working with attorneys in their state, but I was their cheerleader on the sidelines saying, do this now, do this now. Because the way that the probate process works, if my aunt had not put her house in a trust, she was going to have to pay a pretty big amount to the probate court just for that house to go exactly where she wants it to go, which is to her two daughters. It was more than like $16,000 is what it was going to cost. And my guess is I'm not an expert on that, and I probably underestimated what it was going to be. But the good news is they were listening to me, cheering on the sidelines, and they did what they needed to do. So that same situation, if you were in Texas, you wouldn't necessarily need a trust. But if you were in California, a trust would be recommended because of those associated fees. And the timeline can be really long as well. I had a family member who passed away in California. It took 9 months for her distribution of her estate to be approved by the probate court. 9 months. Meanwhile, another family member several years later who had a trust, we were able to get everything distributed in 2 months. And it would have happened faster, but we had to sell a house. So it really can cut down on the amount of time it takes to process everything once you've passed away. If you do sort of have all of these documents put together and so on, and certainly if you can avoid the probate process. But I always encourage you to talk to somebody who is an expert where you're going to be living, because that will determine what you need to do. How can you avoid the probate process? Well, one of the ways is to own assets jointly. Another way is to name beneficiaries. Like I mentioned, on your various financial accounts, you can name beneficiaries, and then those things aren't going to go through probate. You can also give away things while you're still here. So gifting while you're still alive is one way of doing it, and also creating a living trust. And that's that trust document. The thing that is nice about a trust is that a trust can put conditions on being able to use whatever the asset is, whether it's just money or if it's a home or what have you. You can put conditions on that. So my kids are older. I'm no longer worried about that. But when they were younger, we initially were going to do what's called a testamentary trust. There wasn't a trust before we passed away, but when we died, money would be moved into a trust at that point because our sons were quite young and we didn't want them to get some bigger sum of money and then, blow it on something, who knows what, and then have nothing to show for it, or they weren't very financially savvy at the time. We didn't want them to be taken advantage of and so on. So one of the things you can do when you do create a trust, whether it's a living trust or a testamentary trust, which isn't created until you pass away, the thing is you're able to then put conditions on how the money can be used, what the money can be used for, and most importantly, what age any of your beneficiaries needs to be before they receive the money. Because if you just name beneficiaries, if they are over 18, they're going to get that asset or that money when you pass away. So definitely something to think about. And then what about naming guardians? Your day-to-day guardian and your financial guardian, if you have children under 18 or somebody with special needs, you're going to name two different guardians, two different roles, but they can be the same person or they can be different people. The key thing here is they need to be people who will get along with each other. That's most important there, is that they get along with each other, because they're going to have to act on behalf of whoever they're representing. And then the person who's your executor, they're going to carry out your wishes. They have to get copies of the death certificate. They have to prepare lists of assets, go to the court, do filings with the court and with tax authorities. They might have to notify different people you are working with, whether it's banks or insurance companies. They'll be responsible for paying debts, filing your taxes and so on, and distributing your assets as they're stated in your will. So most importantly, you want it to be somebody that you trust and that you feel is capable of doing that. I've taught this, as I mentioned, for a number of years, and originally it's probably been 10 years ago, my husband and I had actually named just one. We have two sons, and we'd named one son as the executor. And mostly it was because that son worked in corporate America. The other one was working a non-traditional job. He was doing like restaurant management. So he worked late nights and long hours and whatnot. But I had a participant in one of my classes, and she shared that when her parents passed away, her older sister was the executor, and it actually hurt their relationship. And that really resonated with me. When we went back about 5 years ago to redo things, we went ahead and we actually named our sons as co-executors, especially because they're a little bit older now. They're married, they have families. And so there's already another influence in anything they're going to be doing because they've got a spouse there that might want to weigh in on what's happening. So we just decided, you know what? They can be co-executors. If each one of them wants to hand off tasks, they're free to do that. But we want to make sure that each of them knows they have a share and they have a right to have a voice. And we're pretty confident that they're going to get along and do it right. I mean, I'm hopeful. I feel like we raised them the right way. I can only hope and pray that when the time comes that they'll come together and not have it be a difficult situation. I mean, it'll be difficult anyway, but not have it be contentious. So definitely think about that. Now, after your will is prepared, a lot of times people will then put their will in a safe deposit box. The problem is if you pass away and nobody else has a copy and the bank knows and nobody else can access that safe deposit box, no one can get in there to get that. So you need to figure out where do you want to put it? How do you want people to access it? And you definitely should review it. So every 3 to 5 years, or if you have any change in circumstances, if there's new family members, new babies in the world, and you want to make sure that they're named, or if somebody that you loved and cared about and had named predeceases you, you might want to go back. And most importantly, if you move the state you live in. If you move within your state, that's no problem. The regulations apply statewide. But if you move outside your state, you want to have it reviewed because a will that's valid here in Texas is not necessarily valid in Minnesota or in Florida or in California. So definitely keep that in mind. And then also if there's a change in the laws. And I mentioned trust. How does a trust work? What a trust does is it takes property that's currently owned by somebody, it puts it into a legal document. That's the trust itself. And it dictates who the trustee is and who successor trustees are. And it dictates who the beneficiaries are. What's interesting about a trust is all three of these people, all three of these roles, they can all be the same person. I can own the property today. I can put it in a legal trust where I'm the trustee to be used for my benefit. And then I name who's the next trustee when something happens to me, even if I'm still alive, but I need somebody to run the trust because I'm not physically or mentally able. That successor trustee could step in and start to take care of things. And then when I pass away, it's no longer being used for my benefit, but it's for whomever I have named after that. So that's what's important is if you do a trust, there's a couple of steps. So I was walking this process through with my aunt. One step is to create the document. The next step is to retitle the property. And so her home is now owned by her family trust. If she created the legal document and then did not retitle the house, she really has a useless piece of paper and her family's going to pay a lot of money when that house goes through the probate process. So make sure if you do a trust that you follow through and do all the next steps that you need to so that any property that you have that you're able to put inside that trust is owned by the trust itself. The next slide talks about revocable or irrevocable. I'm not going to get into this one right now. Right now, you can give away multiple millions of dollars without having to worry about estate taxes. This would become important if they ever lowered the estate tax regulations much lower. So unless you have over $13 million, I fall into that category. I've got less than that, then I'm not really worried about this. But if you suddenly, came into a huge sum of money or something, the key here is if you want to get it out of your estate, it actually has to go to what's called an irrevocable trust. You basically have to give it away forever. So that's what this one is talking about. Now, estate planning, of course, we spent the first part of this discussion looking at the top two things. It helps distribute your property, helps take care of survivors' needs, but there are other documents you need as well. Estate planning also can specify wishes for medical treatment and handling your personal affairs. If you are physically or mentally unable to do that, there are a couple of different documents. One is a durable power of attorney. It grants another person the power to act on your behalf regarding non-health related matters. So this is regarding any type of financial matters. And it's really nice because it helps reduce overall that physical and psychological and financial burden on your family if somebody's available to step in and to take things over. The next one is a living will and healthcare power of attorney. These might be one document in your state. This might be a combined document in your state. And that the healthcare power of attorney often also has a HIPAA release in there. It stands for the health and I think it's health insurance Portability Act. I haven't worked on HIPAA in so long, I've kind of forgotten what it means, but it does give people access to your medical records. Otherwise, your health information. Actually, it's the Health Information Portability and Accountability Act is what HIPAA is. It just hit me what it was. But it does protect your health information. So somebody has to be listed to actually have access to it. But a living will, this is the document that says, I'm not going to get better. I'm unable to tell you what I want or don't want. So that document is going to guide whoever's caring for me. If I don't want a feeding tube, if I don't want to be resuscitated or whatnot, all of that is going to be highlighted in that living will. And then a healthcare power of attorney or that HIPAA release grants somebody else to make medical decisions if you are unable to make your own medical decisions. So I just encourage you that you really want to do your will or your will in a trust. You'll also want to do that durable power of attorney, the living will, and that healthcare proxy or HIPAA release. All of those are important documents. Now, one other document that's really important as well is a letter of instructions. Now, this is not a legal document, but what's nice about this is it's a way to tell your family, here's what I want with this stuff, or here's what I mean with this stuff. Like maybe you're not giving your money out equally to different family members. Here would be your chance to explain why. I helped child A significantly while they were going to college to become this important profession or whatnot. And for those reasons, they're getting a smaller share of my estate or whatnot. But you can explain those things. Also, you can explain, here's where stuff is. If something happened to you, just think about this for a moment. If something happened to you, do they know where your bank is? Do you have a safe deposit box? Do they know where you hide your good jewelry? Do they know if you have life insurance? Do they know if you have a 401k or a 403b or an IRA? So a lot of times our families don't know this stuff. Back in the day, what did you do? You went to the house and you went through all their paperwork. These days, so much of that information is stored on your computers. There's not a bunch of paperwork sitting around that says, oh, I have this insurance policy or I have this account with this bank and so on. So this is your opportunity to say, here's where these different things are. Here are people you need to notify. And this is something where you can keep this updated on a regular basis. I actually go over my letter of instructions and I update it like every 2 to 3 years. For all the latest information. I had to update it when I moved to where I live now. I had to update it because I have a different bank. I have a different place where I have my different assets and so on. I wanted to make sure if something happened, my family members would know where to find them. As a matter of fact, because of like after COVID and since then we've lost a few of our elder family members, I have been kind of on a broken record reminding them, hey, here's where I keep this stuff. If you come here and something's happened to your dad and I, here's where the binder is, and here's where the copy of the will is, and here are the people you need to contact, and so on. So this is your opportunity to really share that information. I have one big project I have been putting off since October. I've got to get it on my calendar. I've got to write it down. But what I want to do is I have some jewelry pieces, and I don't have anything that's like worth a ton of money, but there are some pretty things and they're real gold and whatnot that were my mom's or they were my grandmother's. I'm like the last of my line on my side of the family. I want my kids to know where those different pieces came from because I know their history, but nobody else does. So I've already taken pictures, but what I want to do is I want to go through and I want to see this necklace was my mom's and this is who gave it to her. And then she gave it to me for my birthday when I turned 30 or whatever the piece is. So that's on my list of things to do. And I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to make a commitment and get that on my list and give myself a deadline. That's something I really want to do. If something were to happen to me, I want my family to know why some of those pieces are sentimental because they're going to be looking at it like, ooh, really? I wouldn't wear something like this. But it might make a difference if they knew it was their great-grandmothers or their grandmothers or their moms. So you can do that kind of stuff in your letter of instructions. You're also going to tell people where all these things are. Where is my will or trust document? Where are the deeds and titles? What about insurance policies? How do you want to be buried? Were you in the military? Where are your discharge papers? Bank account numbers? User IDs and passwords. Oh my goodness, can they even get into the computer? If you got a password, maybe the answer is no. So how will they find that? who your attorney is, if you work with an attorney, your accountant, your life insurance agent, your financial person. And also, what about digital assets? You know, right now, you've got so much stuff out there and it's digital. What's going to happen to it? Many states have actually enacted rules about how to access digital assets. So that's something you may want to look into and some steps to take because they're going to need to know how to get into those various accounts and so on. So I know, right? So much to think about. There really is, but it is an important topic. And I have to tell you, even as I sit here, I really have done a pretty good job, other than the jewelry, I've done a really good job of all those documents and the letter instructions and so on. I have not tackled the digital thing yet. I just kind of like every time I look at that, I just shake my head like, maybe I'm just not going to post very much and it really won't matter. I don't know. I haven't figured that one out yet. But keep in mind the different documents you do need. So let's do a kind of a recap. For estate planning, the things you need during your lifetime. That financial power of attorney, that's actually good while you're still alive, that durable power of attorney. Healthcare power of attorney and HIPAA release, that's good while you're still alive. The living will, that's the thing that says, don't hook me up to machines, don't resuscitate me, don't put me on a feeding tube. And a trust, it's going to be good when I pass away to give things away, but it's also good while I'm still here if I need to have somebody step in to actually make sure I'm taken care of because I physically or mentally am unable to do that. And then also retitling your assets. That's important if you do a trust. You want to make sure that is done correctly. Otherwise, you paid a good amount of money because a trust is not, it's not cheap to do a trust. I mean, on average, I would say it's probably, I'd say $500 to $1,000 to do all of these other wills and all these different documents you might need, whereas a trust is going to be a couple $1,000s. And that's going to depend on where you live. I know for my family that was in California, it was well north of $2,000 to have those trust documents drawn up. Now their situation was a little more complicated, so that might have had something to do with it. It probably did. You know, the more time it takes, the more it costs. But definitely make sure that you do the appropriate documents. And then when you pass away, here are the documents that become very important. Your will, if you don't have a trust, then it's all going through your will and through probate. Your beneficiary designations, your letter of instructions, and your document locator. One more thing I forgot to mention when I talked about avoiding probate. Some states have the ability for you to transfer your house or real property without it going through probate, but you'll have to research that in your state, and I'm sure an attorney can help you with that as well. In Texas, it's called a transfer on death deed. I can basically go through and fill out that document, and then when I die, this property I'm sitting in here right now, it automatically would go to whoever I have named in that transfer on death deed. So that's something you can think about and consider if you would like to do that, and potentially not have to do a trust, but it's totally up to you how you will handle that. But the action step here is definitely to meet with an estate lawyer to update or draft important documents. And, you know, people will tell you, well, you can just download forms and do it on your own. And certainly there are some circumstances where that would be a fine thing to do. But if you have a more complex estate, if either of you was married previously and had children from a first marriage or relationship, it might make a lot more sense if you worked with an attorney to make sure things are drafted correctly. So what else estate planning can do to you? It can manage gifting to loved ones and charities during your life, as well as when you pass away. Right now, you can give up to $19,000 per year to as many people as you want to without having to pay a gift tax. If you're married, you can give away $38,000 between the two of them. And basically, each of you could give away $13,990,000 within your lifetime before you'll have to pay federal estate taxes, which is, I mentioned that great big number. It's currently $13,990,000, and then between a married couple, it would be double that amount. Also, the gift tax doesn't apply at all if you're directly paying for another person's medical care or educational expenses, or for gifts to your spouse, as long as your spouse is a U.S. citizen, or to gifts to charity. So one of the ways you can reduce the size of your estate is to start giving gifts throughout your lifetime, as well as giving gifts to individuals and giving gifts to charities, because those will reduce the size of your estate. We do always remind you that before you make a gift, even to your children, you need to be certain that you and your spouse will not need those assets. So the last part of this is how to avoid estate taxes. And I'm going to go through this very quickly because the bottom line for many of us is this is not going to be an issue just because the level is currently really high. What's included in your estate is all on this slide right here. It's everything you own, your half of things. That's your gross estate. They subtract out your liabilities and expenses. That's your adjusted gross estate, less any marital or charitable. I tried to combine the word marital or charitable bequests, and then that becomes your taxable estate. And so they really look to see, okay, what, I feel like I missed a slide. Oh, I didn't. Okay. I did, because I think I felt like I went through the slide too fast. So we've got a couple here, it's Josh and Amy. And so here's what they own total, but you can see what we'll do or what will happen when it comes time when one of them passes away is it'll kind of be separated into the two different people as to what their estate is. And so you can see the gross or the total estate is $2 million, but it's basically jointly owned between Josh and Amy in this example. And then will you owe estate taxes? Well, here's the chart. But even though the numbers are super high this year, $13,990,000 per person, in 2026, if they don't continue the current tax proposal, which they've, the current administration is talking about extending this particular tax, this tax benefit, they're talking about extending it. So it may be extended, but even if it's not extended, it will be probably around $6 million once they adjust, because that $5 million was from back in 2017, and it'll be adjusted for inflation. So I would think it will be pretty close to 6 million by the time they do adjustments for those different years. So that's something to keep in mind, but a married couple can basically shelter a total of 27 million. It's such a huge number. I'm like, what? It doesn't even sound real. But 27,980,000 between the two of you. So definitely you want to do some planning. And then here's some additional things you can do, just keeping in mind those things are available. The most important thing I would say right here is talk through your goals with your loved ones, with your spouse or your loved ones. What happens if I die? What happens if you die? What happens if we die together? What happens, and do we have children from our first marriage or relationship, and we want to make sure everybody is named? So you want to talk through that and any other complex situations. What happens if you have a special needs child? You have to have those conversations and then find that right lawyer. We've got a few resources and places you can look that are listed right here. And when should you review your estate plan? You should review your estate plan if you get married or divorced, birth or death of a spouse, a beneficiary of an executor, if you change states, if the laws change, and really every 3 to 5 years. Now, I've already talked about our EY tools, and I'm going to talk more about those in this next segment that I'm moving on to. So don't worry about that. We'll get back to these in just a moment. But our planner line can definitely help you. Now, here's what our planner line cannot do. We're not a law firm and we can't prepare these legal documents, but we can certainly help you understand which documents might be best for you and which things might work. And then as we get to the end of this particular presentation, here are just a few things we've listed. What 3 actions do you think you want to do? If you've already got your will, when's the last time you looked at it? Do you already have your durable power of attorney? Maybe you could put that on your list as something you want to look into and make sure you get that executed. So keep that in mind. If you've got your notebook right there, as I do with mine, maybe write those down of the few things that you may want to do as a result of attending this particular workshop. And if you would like to send your feedback on this session, we do have a meeting code that goes with each of our presentations. The code for today's session for this class is 44471, and I'll have a separate code for the next one. Now, before I move on, let me just check in very quickly to see with Cheryl or Frank if we had any questions.
And I want to say thank you again, Catherine, for all that great information. I always learn something new. I didn't have any other questions other than someone commented that someone's estate has taken over 3 years to try to take care of, which is,
Oh, my
I
Lord.
can't even imagine, a lot of different things, factors going into it, having to sell a house and selling the lot next to it. And
Yes.
it's just lots of different stuff, but yeah. Hopefully they'll get it all finished up by August of this year. So yeah, so just
Wow.
learning the
That
importance of all of that.
that's quite the reminder. That's exactly right. It's like these things can be very challenging to deal with. Plus, sort of to add insult to injury, you've lost your family member,
Right,
So
right.
we're not really feeling great about that anyway.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so thank you for sharing that. That is
Of
so true.
course.
I will say the
Mhm.
one thing, like my aunt's estate, the reason why it was more complicated for her to do her living trust is that it turns out when my uncle passed away in 1996, she did nothing.
Oh,
Her house was owned by her and my uncle who passed away in 1996. So it really took a bit longer to do everything. But good news, my uncle's no longer on the deed to the house. If something were to happen, her daughters will be able to step in and they're not going to have to pay a great big price tag to the state of California for the privilege of taking over their mom's house. So just kind of crazy sometimes the situations that you hear about. All right,
yes,
well, I'm
but
going to switch gears because
please do.
I have always liked to start on time and end on time, and I'm going to finish up here right at 1 o'clock Central. So I'm going to jump on into my next topic, which is Social Security and your retirement. And I know when Cheryl was going through the benefits access tool, she talked about Social Security. So we'll be talking more about Social Security today, kind of how they do the calculations and so on. And of course, it's going to be based on here's what's happening today. As you know, there's so much going on with our current administration, and there's so much talk about it. But I keep hearing promises that they're not going to hurt our benefits. So we are hopeful. And I know there are a lot of people that are going to speak up if they try to do something that will take anything away from us. So definitely it's something you want to pay attention to. Now I'm just going to zip through these next slides because they're those same slides we showed at the beginning of the last presentation. But what we're going to do in this presentation, let me tell you my objectives first. We are going to go through an overview of the retirement planning process. We're going to focus on and we're going to focus on the steps, although we just go through them very briefly in this particular presentation. If you've ever had a chance to see the Achieving Financial Wellness program, we go through those same steps, but in a lot more detail. But the good news is, even if you've never been to that one, if you're interested in any of this, you can work with your EY planner and they can guide you through the process because they know it very well. And of course, we're going to highlight your resources and understanding Social Security. So again, here's your Wespath tools. Here are your EY tools. Don't forget about making some notes. Please do, please do. I'm a big note maker. You can bet I'm going to look at my calendar and figure out when am I going to get that document done about the family jewelry. I'm thinking I'll give myself till the end of the month, a little grace here. We've been dealing with some difficult family situations with other family members and whatnot. So I'm going to say I'm going to do that. I'm just going to write it down right now because there's my calendar. All right, I'm going to give myself a couple days grace though, but I'll say the 28th. So by the 28th of March, I hope you, like me, will look at your calendar, figure out when you're going to get those things done. And then I'm going to put jewelry here because later on I'll look at that note and think, oh, I wonder what happens on the 28th of March. And I know I'm not the only one who does that kind of stuff. All right, so let's just do a quick overview of the retirement planning process. You start with what are your goals, which I think is really interesting. Years ago, before I was teaching these topics, I always thought it started with how much money do I have? And then I figured out how to live on that. But the reality is the first step is what are your goals? What are your goals, your dreams, your ideas? What do you want to do? And then how can you take what you have put aside here and make those things happen? So what are your goals? And then depending on those goals, what will you need to achieve those specific goals? And then what will you have? Is there a gap between what you'll have and what you'll need? If there is, what should you do about it? And step 6, how do you stay on track? I always tell people, I think step 6 is equally as important as all of those other steps. You have to make sure that you're staying on track. I'm actually semi-retired now. I call EY my part-time job. And I'm so excited to be here with you today, exercising that part-time job. But every year I kind of go back and I sort of call it the state of our household, where I go back and I look at here's what we said we would spend. How did we do according to our budget? Is our money doing well in our investments? And how long do we think it will last, along with any annuities? I have some annuity payments like you may have coming through your what is it, the MMP or one of your other programs. I also have some annuities. So how am I doing to stay on track? It really is important. But we're going to start with like the really fun part. What are your goals? When will your retirement start? And most importantly, what are you going to do? Are you going to head out on that ship, be sitting on that beach, enjoying a beautiful garden? I wish my garden looked as beautiful as this. I have a neighbor who can make anything in the world grow. And when I bring home plants, I kind of always apologize in advance. Like, I hope you're with me for a while, but it's not looking good for you because I bought it. At any rate, are you going to be out there golfing or doing other fun activities? So what are your retirement goals? Now, one other comment I always like to make here, things don't have to be expensive to be fun. I mean, I think it'd be pretty pricey to jump on that particular ship, but at the same time, you can still go on cruises and have them be inexpensive. You can go to plays if you love to go to plays and you happen to live in an area where they have the tour of Broadway plays or whatnot. I live in an area now where we have that. I lived in an area previously where we had that, and I used to volunteer at the theater. I would go down to the theater, I would show everybody where they needed to sit, and then when the lights went down, I sat down and I watched that play for free. And everybody sitting around me, they've paid anywhere from $80 to $150 for that seat. I'm sitting in it for free. All I had to do was give a little bit of my time, go through the training process, and wear a white shirt with a bow tie and a little black jacket. So there are so many ways you can do things for fun and for free. It doesn't have to be expensive. Most importantly, figure out what are those things that will bring you joy. And then what will you need? Because what you're trying to figure out here is how much money am I going to need? Like if I'm going to do those extra things, do they cost money? So I want to build that into my budget. And what will I need each year? And how long will I live? I don't really know, but I want to do the best job I can to do some sort of determination of how long will my money last. And most importantly, let me factor in inflation. Now, I've been talking about inflation for a good 14 years while I've been doing these classes. But the interesting thing to me is in the past 3 years, I feel like people are finally listening to me because you've seen the impact of inflation. So you really have to factor in inflation and make sure that you've put that as a part of your whole process. And then will you have any one-time first year expenses? So you really want to get a good feel for what's going on with me and how much money am I going to need ongoing. And there's only one way to figure that out. You start with, where am I today? Every time you do any of that goal planning, when we're talking about finances, it always starts with where am I today? What do you have today? So we start with your first column here. So I know I may have some clergy here. So instead of FICA taxes, you have your SECA taxes, which of course you're paying double that with only half of it being deductible. And then you have money, hopefully, going into the UMPIP for the savings component. You may have transportation or commuting expenses. So really all we've done is I've taken 100% of my salary, and just to keep it simple, we've broken it down into percentages. And what you're trying to figure out when you're estimating your retirement income needs, you're trying to figure out, what does that retirement column look like? So let's bump over to the retirement column, because ultimately, what you're trying to do and the way to use the different tools that we have that can help you understand how long your money will last, you're trying to understand what is my replacement ratio? What percentage of today's dollars will I need ongoing into retirement? So I've got my FICA taxes or SECA taxes. If I'm no longer working, those will go away. So you can see I'm not this person is not working part-time as I am, because I still have a component of money going into those taxes. Um, and they don't have any more going into savings. Now, that's a situation I recognize that because I no longer have sort of an active savings component from the money I'm making. It's helping supplement what I have as far as our lifestyle, but I'm not necessarily actively saving a specific percentage as much as I did when I was actively working. So you can figure out how you want to handle that if you are working part-time. And then you can see my different expenses have changed. So where you'll see a big opportunity for savings is, let's say you were already saving that 8% or 10%. Well, right away, you only need 90% if you don't have that savings component going in there. If you're no longer working and that's 7.5% you were paying towards your FICA taxes for Medicare and Social Security, well, then we're talking about, 17% potentially that goes away. And so that's how we're able to see that some of those expenses may go down. And then you'll see other expenses may go down as well. I mean, maybe clothing. When I was in an active role and I worked outside the home, I spent a lot more on clothes. And now I'll put on t-shirts. I love going to live concerts and I have concert t-shirts. I will put on concert t-shirts from a concert that was 20 years ago. If they start fraying or whatever, I grab my sewing machine and I patch them up and I keep wearing them. So, because I love the concert, I love the music, I still listen to the music, and I still enjoy the experience kind of vicariously by wearing that concert t-shirt. So it's a lot less goes into my clothing budget. And some people, they might spend a little bit more on their clothing budget. Maybe they're going to go out more and they weren't going out as much previously. But whatever it is, wherever it is you want to spend your money, just make sure you put it in whatever that budget is. One of the things I love about being semi-retired is I don't have to go shopping when it's really busy. I don't have to go to the restaurant when it's packed with people trying to get away on a Friday night. I can be there on like Tuesday or Wednesday. I can go during happy hour or the early bird special because I have a lot more flexibility with my time. So those are the types of things you can look at for ways to enjoy yourself without having to spend too much money. But ultimately, you're trying to figure out what is my replacement ratio. And if you're just wanting to guess one, the first time I did these calculations, I just guessed. I'm like, I don't even feel like trying to figure out what my needs are. Here's what I make now. I'm gonna say I'm only gonna spend 85% of that in retirement, and then see how long my money will last. But the closer you are to retirement, the more important it is to go through this in a bit more detail. So your action step right here is going to be to determine your personal replacement ratio. And then be sure to factor in the impact of inflation. Again, I don't have to tell you that anymore. I mean, you only need to go to look in the grocery store. I was buying, I don't even want to talk about eggs. I'm like gonna need a tissue because I'll get choked up. But I was buying my favorite pasta brand, and it used to be my favorite pasta brand. I would watch for it and it would go on sale and it would be $1 for a box of pasta. I paid $1.84 yesterday. And you know what? I'm like, yay, that was a pretty good price. $1.84. And it's only been really in like a 5-year period of time that it went from $1 on sale to $1.84. I'm up here thinking, whoa, I'm glad I'm not paying, over $2 for that same box of pasta. So definitely want to factor in inflation. So how will inflation impact you? Well, right now, if you're still working, it doesn't have as big an impact because hopefully your income is correspondingly going up by those cost of living adjustments. But if the inflation rate is 3%, what's going to happen is every basically 24 years at a 3% inflation rate, the cost of goods and services will double. So at 28, it's $50,000, and then pretty quickly it's 100,000, and then not that long away later it's 200, and by the time you're at 100, it's $400,000. Now, I will tell you, having had family members who lived well into their mid 90s, that they weren't spending on the same things when they got to those ages. So this is kind of an extreme example, but it does just remind you of the importance of factoring in inflation. And you can use the rule of 72 to determine when something will double. You might remember that from school. It's 72 divided by your interest rate is going to give you the number of years before it doubles. So if inflation is 3%, it's going to double every 24 years. But we already know some things are going to double differently. I mean, because that would make sense, except in like 5 or 6 years here now, my pasta has doubled. Some things have doubled. But meanwhile, I just recently purchased a new laptop computer. My last one I purchased 4 years ago. This year's was cheaper. So it didn't go up by, well, it wouldn't have gone up by 100%, but it didn't go up by 25%, in that 4 to 5 year period of time. So it's definitely something where you'll want to factor in inflation, make sure that you have that as a part of the exercise that you're doing. And then we get into what you will have. Now, when we look at the full picture of what you'll have, you have money coming from your Wespath benefits, whether it's your UNPIP or the different pension programs with the MPP and so on. Those are under your Wespath benefits. And then potentially you have some personal resources. Maybe you had a pension from a prior employer, or your spouse has their own pension or their own savings or whatnot that they had put aside. What we'll focus on, though, is Social Security. So in this part of the program, we're now going to focus in on Social Security. And interestingly enough, while this slide gives us this blue sky with just some clouds on the horizon, I would have to say that now more than ever, there's a great big uncertainty around Social Security. Now, that doesn't mean I don't think they're going to be able to pay the benefits they promised. We do know they can pay the benefits they promised right now. As a matter of fact, every year the trustees look at the Social Security money and they say, when will this money run out? So according to the report that was released in August of 2024, and they look at this every year, the money will not run out, but it will start to have issues starting in 2035. So in 2035, 10 years from now, at that point, they can only pay about 83% of the benefits that are promised. So what is important, it is important that our lawmakers take a look at Social Security and hopefully make decisions and take actions on what will keep it healthy. I was reading an article about that earlier today, and there's already some politicians out there, and they're saying that one of the easiest things they can do is take away the cap on how much you'll pay of your up to a certain level of your salary. Every year there's like a Social Security cap. Once you get to that salary, any money you make over that, they don't take those Social Security amounts from your money. So one of them would just be bump that cap up much higher. It does mean that people who are have a lot more money coming in would pay more in Social Security, but it would actually keep the program really healthy for a very long time. They're talking like 75 years or more. So only time is going to tell what will happen. What I would say when we talk about any of this is I would have to go back to some biblical inspiration and basically say, fear not. Don't be worried about this stuff. Pay attention so that you can let the people who represent you know your feelings, but I wouldn't worry about it. I believe that Social Security will be there in spite of all the talk, and people are, kind of, I think, maybe reacting or overreacting. I hope they're overreacting, but a lot of people are being very loud right now and trumpeting that there are going to be huge problems. But I'm a believer that I think that sanity is going to prevail as they actually put things in place. They're going to be looking at the people who will be impacted. And so I'm really hopeful that the program will continue to be around throughout our lifetimes, but definitely pay attention. So that's my lecture on that. But most importantly, don't worry about this stuff. I always feel like there's really just sort of one person in control, and I think we're kind of in the same vein on that. I have a similar belief that you do. What percentage of income does Social Security actually replace at full retirement for someone with an estimated annual salary of $63,000? Give you a second to think about that one. The survey says 41%. So, a big part of Social Security is the fact that it's not really replacing 100% of people's money anyway. It does replace a higher percentage for the people who made a lower amount and a much lower percentage for people who made a higher amount. But it is something that they are going to need to look at, and they've talked about looking at it at this point. So it should be really interesting to see what happens. But as I always tell folks, if you're closer than others to Social Security age, most importantly, pay attention, because if they're going to take away benefits from you, you want to be sure that you can let your elected officials know your point of view on that. Here's how Social Security is funded. It is through taxes. So if you are a layperson, Social Security is 6.2% of everything you make, up to the annual wage limit. You can see the wage limit this year is $176,100. And so the employee is paying that, and the church is paying the other half. If you're clergy, you pay the whole thing. You're paying the 12.4. Of course, 6.2 is coming from like your wages, if you will. The other 6.2 is deductible as a business expense when you're doing your taxes. And then for Medicare, it's 1.45%. And it's the same system, 1.45 from the layperson, 1.45 from the church. There are some additional taxes. If you make a higher income, there are some additional taxes. Those were actually put in place because of the Affordable Care Act, which passed back in 2009, which is often called Obamacare, but it's the Affordable Care Act. And it put in a couple of additional taxes to help fund some of the benefits that were rolled out with the Affordable Care Act. So that's where you'll see all those cute little asterisks have to do with additional taxes for people who make over $200,000 if you're single, or over $250,000 if you're married filing jointly. So you would have to pay some of those additional taxes. And then of course, clergy, you're paying that whole thing. It's 2.9% on Medicare with the additional taxes if your salary is over those limits. So here's where it starts to get really interesting in how they actually calculate your Social Security benefit, because it's crazy. Well, it's not crazy, but it's really complicated. I mean, it seems like it shouldn't be too hard, but it's really complicated. They go through this whole formula and they calculate what they call your PIA, or primary insurance amount. So what they do is, first of all, they take your monthly earnings, and Social Security uses 35 years of earnings. So they use your highest 35 years of earnings. So they take all 35 years, they then bump them up for inflation throughout those years. And those are now, and then they give you, and then they come up with an average. So from 35 years, they come up with one number, which is your average indexed monthly earnings calculated based on your highest 35 years of index earnings. And it can help if you're working part-time. For me personally, continuing to work with my wonderful people at EY with my part-time job actually helped my earnings, because I'm making a better salary than back when I was doing family daycare 35 years ago. So those earnings have dropped off of my calculation, and instead it's the earnings that I've made through EY. And in the end, that has overall bumped up my Social Security benefits. So if you continue to work, it can still help impact your Social Security benefits, and especially important if you have zeros in there anywhere. So if you have 30 years of earnings and 5 years of zeros, they're not just going to divide by 30, they're still going to divide by 35. So your average would be lower. So any income that you have that goes toward the calculation is going to help you. So it's 90% of the first 1,226, 32% of the next 6165, and then 15% of everything over 7391 up to that max for that year. This year's maximum is the 176. Of course, I've turned the page, I'm going to totally forget, but this year's is the 176. It's on my page. 176,100. So they do it up to whatever that maximum is. And then because there's a maximum, they can actually every year tell us the maximum benefit they would give. So the maximum benefit that they would pay for somebody starting to collect in 2025 is $4,018. The average benefit is right around 1976. And then Social Security, your benefit depends on the year you were born. For many people who are on this meeting here today, your full retirement age is probably age 67. It's thus for anybody born in 1960 or later. So anybody born 1960 or later. So you can see what they are for the years before if you happen to be somebody who doesn't fall into that category. But here's how it works. If I want 100% of the money, I wait until my full retirement age. So that's the age for full benefits. And they often will refer to that as FRA. If you've seen that, it just means full retirement age for Social Security. If I want to take the money, I can take it as early as age 62. You can see I would receive 70%. If I'm willing to wait beyond 67, my benefits will go up by 8% a year. So every year I wait, I get an 8% raise on what I was going to receive. So if I waited until 70, I would get 124% of my benefits through my Social Security benefits. So that's something to keep in mind. And then Social Security, they go through all these calculations and then they look to see, okay, what benefits are they going to pay? They will pay worker benefits. That's that person who had the work history and who earned the money throughout their work history. They'll also pay spouse benefits, and they'll pay spouse benefits even to a spouse who did not work outside the home at all. So I've got an example on the next slide. I've got Dan and Kathy. And Dan, we're just going to assume Dan's worker benefit is $1,000 a month. If Kathy, his spouse, waits until her full retirement age, she can collect Dan's benefit. That would give her $500. Now, it turns out Kathy was a worker in her own career, and her worker benefit is $400. Her benefit as a spouse is $500. So what Social Security will do, it will give you the greater of the two. So Social Security, it pays workers, it also pays spouses. And another law that just passed recently, I'm going to forget the legal name of it, even though I looked it up yesterday, but it impacted a couple of programs that used to lower people's Social Security benefits as a spouse or as a worker, and it's eliminated those two programs. So if your spouse was a teacher and didn't pay into Social Security, they might be eligible to receive a benefit now, whereas previously that might have been taken away because of what was called the government pension offset. So the government pension offset has gone away and the windfall elimination provision has gone away. So if you worked in a job where you didn't pay into Social Security for some period of time, or if you worked in a job or your spouse worked in a job where they didn't pay in, but they're getting a pension benefit, they may be eligible to benefits that they were not previously. And for people who are already collecting benefits, they're starting to go in and make those adjustments. I have a good friend and neighbor who got a big adjustment in her Social Security. She's like, oh my gosh, what is this? And it was because they've made changes to those laws, and now they've gone and recalculated her benefit. They were all like, oh my gosh, it's an overpayment. They're just going to take it back. We have to figure out what this is. But it is a legitimate change in her benefits. So she'll now receive a higher benefit. Social Security also pays survivor's benefits. There's a one-time lump sum that goes to your surviving spouse. It only goes to a surviving spouse of $255. And your spouse can actually receive, if they are their full retirement age, they can receive what you are receiving at the time you passed away. They would receive 100% of your benefit. And you do have to be married for at least 9 months. For the spouse benefit, for the previous slide, when you're both alive, you have to be married for a year. For the survivor benefit, you have to be married for at least 9 months. And there are reduced payments for that survivor benefit as early as age 60, or even younger if you're caring for children who are under age 16. So Social Security doesn't just pay benefits to people who are retired. It pays benefits for children. It pays supplemental income benefits. So it pays a wide variety of benefits, including disability benefits. So the key is to just understand that these benefits are out there. If you're eligible, you would need to apply for them. So when that worker passes away, the spouse can now start to collect the greater of the two benefits. So my girlfriend, if she outlives her husband, she'll benefit from that as well, because she'll be able to collect 100% of the benefit he was receiving when he was alive. So that's going to have a positive impact on their family situation. Also, these rules and regulations for spouses and surviving benefits, they both apply to a divorced spouse as long as they were married for at least 10 years and they're not currently married to someone else. So with Social Security, one of the things that they'll do is they do have an earnings limit. So if you were saying, I'm going to go ahead and get my money as soon as I can, but the key is, are you still working? Because if you're working and you're getting any kind of earned income, so that would be income from employment or self-employment. What doesn't count here is money coming from your pension plan, money coming from your 401k or from your UMPIP. Those don't count against you for this chart, but any earned income from employment or self-employment would count towards this limit. And so if I'm doing this before my full retirement age, once I get over $23,400, for every $2 over that, $1 is going to be withheld from my benefits. If I am my full retirement age, the year I reach my full retirement age, the limit is higher, but it's for every $3, they'll take away $1. Once you reach your full retirement age, there is no reduction to your benefits regardless of your earnings. So that's something to keep in mind as you decide when do you want to apply for your benefits. And currently, Social Security is taxed. They are talking about, right now, they're talking about eliminating this tax. Of course, the challenge is if they eliminate the tax, we're going to have a bigger budget deficit. So what will they do to offset that? And we don't know the answers yet, but sort of stay tuned. For those of you who are close to accepting your Social Security, currently it's taxed. Up to 85% of it is taxable. The numbers you're looking at as far as when they're taxed, these are not adjusted at all. So every year more people are paying more in taxes on their Social Security, but this is definitely something they are actively discussing changing with the current administration. So I guess stay tuned. We're going to have to listen to the news one way or another and see what's going on out there. And they should be letting you know if there are any changes. Of course, if you do want to get estimates, I know that you probably already looked at this earlier today. It's pretty easy to go on there and create a Social Security account at ssa.gov. You can visit there, you can get your Social Security statement, review your earnings record, and estimate your benefits. This is just an example of the document that they do have online, and you can download a copy of this. One thing that's really nice, like when my girlfriend got this money, you might be worried like, oh my gosh, somebody's just given me money. Is it real money or is this some kind of a scam? But what she is able to do, she was able to go onto Social Security and see her earnings payment history, and it showed, or her payment history, it showed they paid her that amount. So she knew confidently that that money was really from Social Security and it wasn't a scam. So that's really a nice feature of being able to go onto the Social Security system to see what's happening with your benefits and so on, as well as being able to estimate what your benefits will be and do calculations and projections, making sure you always want to look at your earnings history and make sure that is correct, but keep all of that in mind. Now, back behind all of this, we then have Medicare. And what should you know about Medicare? I always call it the ABCDs of Medicare. Original or traditional Medicare is Medicare Parts A plus B. You don't have to pay a premium for Part A. That's basically being paid for because you are paying for that 1.45 or that 2.9% for the clergy. You're paying for that right now while you're still working. So there's no separate premium for most people. You will have to pay a premium for Part B. Current premium for new enrollees is $185 per person per month. If your salary is much higher in prior years, you might have to pay a higher premium just until your reported income goes down in future years. And then you have the option once you have A and B, you can choose Medicare Part D, which will pay for prescription drugs. It has a separate premium, or you can look at Medicare Advantage plans that are in your area, and those are managed plans. They're either HMOs or PPOs where you're going to get a good level of benefits, and they often include additional things like prescription drugs without charging a higher premium for them. So that's some good news on that front. For those of you who are actually reside in Minnesota, Minnesota has always been kind of on the forefront of managed care and different programs like that. So you probably have some pretty good options for your Medicare Advantage Part C plans. Best place to find information on Medicare is at their website. It's medicare.gov to learn more. So you do your calculation and then you determine, okay, what will I need? What will I have? Is there a gap? And that's where there's a tool on our website that can help you with that. You can go to our EY Navigate website. And again, that's at wespath.eynavigate.com. And what you'll do is you'll go to the plan for retirement goal on the website, and you just basically fill in the blanks. What are you currently saving? What's your age? What are your income requirements? Remember, we looked at our replacement ratio. Well, I don't need 100% of mine. I need about actually 80% these days of what my pre-retirement income was. So I'd move that back down to 80%. And then you guys just walk through all the steps and do the calculations to show what your current balance is in your savings and so on, what any annuity payments would be, and it's going to tell you how you're doing. And I'll back up for just a second. I know that these people are going to run out of money before they think they're going to run out of life because the line is red. When you get to the point where you have enough money to live the rest of your projected life, it turns green. As a reminder, red light, green light, right? So you'll know you're on track. And it gives you the ability to go in there to adjust what's my retirement age, what's my savings rate, what's my spend rate, and so on to get to that right combination that can help you determine what will help you. And then if you do have a gap, what should you do? Well, you can save more, you can work longer, live on less, or you can try using maybe a little bit more aggressive investment model with your investments. The key is you can use any combination of these things. For me, I did the calculation and I'm like, okay, I'm close, but not exactly. I decided to work part-time. And interestingly enough, I've actually worked much longer part-time than I thought I would. I love doing it. I sit here in my little virtual office and I get to talk to people like you and tell them important stuff that I hope will help with their financial lives. And I just love doing it. So you might find something that you like to do. I also focused on living on less in retirement. We moved to a smaller house, smaller footprint, less in utility costs. We did even end up putting on solar. I love that. Of course, there was the outlay for the solar, but when I pay my bill each month, I'm pretty happy that I'm not spending what my neighbors are spending, especially in the midst of July, August, and September here in Central Texas, just saying. So figure out what you want to do, and you can do any combination. So if you don't have enough, save more by cutting your expenses, planning to spend less in retirement, maybe postpone retirement, maybe look at a part-time opportunity, adjust your assets if you're interested in taking a little bit more risk there. And then if you have enough, well, first of all, if you have enough when you do your first calculation, congratulations. I'm really proud of you. I know there are folks out there that were really super savers and they've done a great job. But also make sure, are your results reasonable? Did you use reasonable assumptions? Make sure you've included everything. And this is something where you can reach out and you can have one of our planners actually look at what you've done and help review it and see if you missed anything. So take advantage of these resources. And then how can you stay on track? Most importantly, you want to implement an appropriate savings and investment plan. Monitor your plan annually or when changes occur. And I tell you again, I do my state of the house. I do my state of the house manager every year and go back and look at everything to see, okay, am I on track? Are there any unexpected expenses? Because that can happen. I planned on keeping my car 2 years ago. I'm like, I'm keeping this car for 80,000 more miles. And then somebody ran into me and totaled it. I was like, what? And I had to buy a new car. So things can happen, and you want to plan for those types of emergencies. Make sure you have an emergency fund. Okay, and don't forget about your resources. Tons of them. You can call our team. You can use the resources on the website. You can attend the different classes that we're going to have. Our planner line can really help you in any area that has a financial aspect. And we've got a ton of information on our website. I always give myself about an hour if I go on the website because I'm going to watch a couple of videos, use a couple of calculators, and pretty soon I'll look up and an hour has flown by. And then don't forget that we have an app. And of course, just like the last class, I've got a few actions you may want to commit to. And while you look at these, let me check in with Cheryl to see if we have any questions.
Actually, we do not have any questions right now. So
Well,
you've
all
done a
right.
great job with all of this
Thank you.
information.
Either everything is perfectly clear or everything is really murky. But if it is, what do I want you to do? I want you to color planner line. You can color planner line and say, I don't even know where to start. And they'll lead you through the conversation. So whatever it takes, you can do that. And I'm just going to go one more slide and just tell you, if you would like to give us feedback on this class, all you have to do is text this information. And the code is 44473 for this class.
Wonderful.
that's it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Catherine. Really appreciate all of your
Thank
information
you.
and how you went through and helped all of us learn more about all of this information. So thank you again.
Absolutely. I love to share
Okay.
this information with people. So
Yes, and it shows. It
happy
shows.
planning. Thank you.
What a great resource. Thank you so much to
Yes.
both of you, Catherine, Cheryl, and Frank out there too. Yeah, absolutely wonderful information. I'm so grateful that this is also being recorded.
Yes.
So we'll get that information out to folks too as to where they can tap into that, and we will take it from there. So any closing thoughts? I mean, I think we've covered just a lot of stuff here.
We
Thank you so
have,
much for your
and
time.
yeah, let you know, just make sure everyone is aware that, you know, if you have questions, the links will be coming out with the presentation from today. The presentation themselves, the decks, we'll make sure that Jim and Sue have them as well.
Thank you.
And again, just know that you have resources available to you. You're not in this by yourself. You have plenty of people who want to make sure that you succeed in your retirement. So that's what we're here to do and try to help.
Well, it's deeply appreciated. Thank you so much.
Of course. And I don't see any other questions if we receive. So, well, look at that. We might be ending a half hour early. How about that?
1
Always a
o'clock
good
was the
thing.
target, I think, for
There you
Catherine.
go.
So yeah,
Yes,
she was spot on.
that she was. All right. We definitely try to stay
Indeed.
on time, on target. So
Okay.
yes. So again, thanks everybody for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Bye.
All righty. Bye-bye.